Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen tells OP that he's her backup plan. I asked out my friend, and she told me I can be her backup plan. Big mistake. I've been friends with Denise for about 12 years. We met in high school, and she quickly became an important part of my life. We navigated those awkward teenage years together, supported each other through breakups, exams, and everything in between. As the years went by, those feelings deepened into a crush. I tried to shake it off, convincing myself that friendship was enough, but it never really worked. Then, about a year ago, I finally decided to take a chance and ask her out. It was a typical Friday evening. We were hanging out, joking around like always. The atmosphere felt right, so I took a deep breath and made my move. I was ready for a positive response, maybe even a shy smile or a teasing comment about how long it took me to ask. Instead, I was hit with the most unexpected and painful rejection I could imagine. "You'll be my backup plan when things don't work out," she said casually, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. The word stung. It felt like a punch to the gut. I forced a laugh, trying to play it off, but inside I was crushed. Did she really just say that? Was I really that replaceable to her? After that moment, I knew I had to pull back. I didn't want to be a backup plan or a consolation prize. I spent some time focusing on myself, working out more, picking up new hobbies, and even reconnecting with other friends. We still hung out, but I made an effort to emotionally distance myself from her. It was tough at first. I missed our old dynamic, but I knew it was necessary for my own well-being. Fast forward to yesterday. We were hanging out at one of our favorite spots, reminiscing about old times, when out of the blue, she mentioned wanting to date me. My heart sank. It was like a bad rerun of a show I never wanted to see again. I knew what she wanted, and I felt that similar sting from her previous comment bubbling up. "Denise, I can't," I said firmly. "You called me your backup plan. That's not how I want to be treated." Her expression shifted instantly from casual to defensive. She wanted to know why I was rejecting her now that she was ready. I took a deep breath. "You called me your backup plan, as in, if I can't get a man I like, I'll give you a chance. Calling any man your backup plan to his face will get you ignored." She stared at me for a moment, her expression a mix of frustration and disbelief. "But I didn't mean it like that." But I could tell that she was struggling to understand my point of view. "Regardless of your intent, it came out wrong. I don't want to be a fallback option for you," I said, my tone steady but firm. In that moment, it was clear that she was angry. Angry at me for not just accepting her offer, and angry at herself for putting me in this position. I could see the realization dawning on her that she might have pushed me too far this time. I got up and walked away. It felt good standing my ground. But then, later that day, I noticed I was blocked on all social media platforms. I knew it was a knee-jerk reaction from her. Maybe she felt embarrassed or hurt that I had turned her down so bluntly. Whatever the reason, it made me realize that perhaps I had made the right choice after all. As I reflected on the situation, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Maybe this was the end of our chapter together, or maybe it was just the beginning of a new one where I could finally prioritize myself and not be someone's backup plan. Not the jerk. You should value yourself. She saw you as a safety blanket and not as a real person. Am I the jerk for being greedy and not giving our daughter's stuff to my pregnant sister? I'm 33, and my husband and I have 2 kids who are 8 and 7. We didn't plan on having them so close together, but it happened. My husband got a vasectomy, so we're set. When I was pregnant with our son, we were living in a rented 2-bedroom house and decorated the nursery with olive and wood tones. We kept it the same when we had our daughter and just made room for the baby. When our son was 6 and our daughter was 5, my husband got a big promotion at work that allowed us to look for and buy a 4-bedroom forever house. Since it was a permanent move, we thought it would be fun to give the kids themed rooms. We asked them each what they wanted. Our son picked dinosaurs. My husband likes to joke that we have a mini Ross on our hands. So we went with a wilderness theme. Our daughter picked Aurora, so we did a fairy tale theme. We went all out, figuring these would be their bedrooms until their teens. We also gave the nursery furniture away since we were done having kids. We asked our families first, but none of them were planning kids at the time, so it went to friends. Now, my sister is 21 weeks pregnant with her first baby, a girl. She was over at our place and mentioned that she was leaning towards something like my daughter's room for the nursery, but nursery items are expensive. I told her she should go with a neutral tone since they plan on having a big family. She was like, "Nah, I want themed rooms for each baby like you did with yours." I raised my eyebrows because that's going to be expensive, but I nodded because who am I to talk when I kind of did the same? We continued chatting and she grabbed my laptop to browse the website I had used. She complained again about the prices, so I suggested she put some of the reasonably priced items on her baby shower list. She gave a non-committal hum and then said that I could give her some things as well. I was confused, thinking she meant the old nursery furniture, so I reminded her that we had already given it away. She shook her head and said she meant the stuff from our daughter's room. I asked her what she meant because my daughter is using that room. She waved her hand and told me it wasn't a big deal. We could part with a few things. I asked her what she thought we could part with, and she casually mentioned the drapes, a lamp, the mirror, and so on. I asked sarcastically if she wanted the sheets as well, or maybe the clothes. She glared at me and said I could just help her out. I told her a flat-out no, saying it was unreasonable to even ask since she and her husband are well off, just like us. It's not like she's struggling and I'm refusing to help. She said it was different for them because they want a big family and they need to save more. I told her if that's the case, they could save by using the same nursery for each baby. She just glared, calling me a greedy jerk, and then left. She's not replying to my texts, and my mom called to ask me what happened because my sister called her to complain without giving specifics. My mom was just as bewildered when I told her the full story. My husband thinks I'm in the right, and I do too, but I'm confused. Maybe there's something we're not seeing. Edit. After talking with my husband and mom, I've decided to give my sister a couple of days to cool off before I try reaching out to her again. You may find this naive, but we all agree this isn't like her. Maybe she and her husband are going through a rough patch financially, or maybe he pulled the plug on themed nurseries. Whatever it is, I'm not ready to go scorched earth and cut my sister off after one bizarre entitled demand. She's still my sister, the one I grew up with, who held me down when I was going through hard times, who kept me grounded, and who let me nearly break her hand from squeezing it too hard during labor until my husband arrived. None of that just goes away. Tone down your greed? Like, for example, someone who's literally trying to grab her niece's possessions? Not the jerk. Am I the jerk? My husband is better than my best friend's husband. I'm writing this post because my best friend's husband, Bert, called my husband, Tim, a jerk. I've usually kept my opinions about Bert's behavior to myself, believing that good friends say their piece once and then support each other through bad relationships. But now I'm turning to the internet for some perspective. I'm currently traveling for work, and Kate, my best friend, is at home, 7 months pregnant and on modified bed rest. Generally, I drop by once or twice a week to bring her family dinner. Tim cooks extra portions to share, cheer her up, and read bedtime stories to our oldest so she can get some extra rest. Bert works an office job, which I'm sure can be stressful. However, during Kate's pregnancy, he's been working longer hours, not for overtime, just as part of his salaried position. This has left her feeling lonely and sad. I've suggested counseling, but that's where things stand for now. Tonight, while texting with Kate around 6 in the evening, she got a craving for tacos from a place near our house. Coincidentally, close to Bert's office as well. She told me she asked him to pick some up on his way home, but he refused, saying he had work to do at home and suggested that she use DoorDash for something nearby. This response made her feel extremely sad. She admitted it might seem irrational, but she missed the days when he would surprise her with her favorite tacos, and now he couldn't even stop for her. Naturally, I shared this with Tim in our usual chat, just as I was getting back to my hotel and readying myself for a work dinner. When I returned from dinner, I learned that Tim had gone out, picked up tacos for Kate, grabbed a bag of items I'd been saving for her and her kid, and even pulled a tuna casserole from the freezer. Bert hates tuna casserole. He dropped everything off on their porch and texted Kate, saying there were some things I'd wanted her to have. Then Bert got home. He didn't bring tacos, coloring books, or even a good attitude. Instead, he called Tim to go off on him, accusing him of showing him up and using a lot of mean language. He even texted me, demanding I keep my husband away from his wife. Tim didn't take Bert's words kindly. When Bert called, Tim told him he was a failure as a human, a man, a father, and a husband. This set Bert off, and he screamed at him. Tim then hung up, blocked Bert, and texted Kate, telling her that if she ever needed help in an emergency, she knew where to find us, but he was done putting up with her crappy husband. Now it's a mess, and I'm not sure what will happen. My husband feels bad that things escalated. He's questioning if he was in the wrong. Bert, of course, thinks Tim is the problem. As for me, I still believe Tim is a sweet man. What do you all think? Bert is the only jerk in this situation. Also, $5 says Bert didn't want to stop for tacos because Bert has not been staying late at the office, and he was nowhere near the good taco place. My new employee ran a background check on me and asked me about what he found, plus 5-year update. I started a new position recently and was quickly promoted to a management role. Given my extensive supervisory background, I was excited about the opportunity to contribute in a larger capacity. One of my direct reports is a conscientious and ambitious young man named Scott. He's been a pleasure to work with overall. However, last week, during a routine conversation about a project, Scott casually mentioned that he had done a background check on me. He then asked me about an arrest on my record, a situation that stemmed from an insurance problem which led to a driver's license issue. I was pulled over for a routine traffic stop in a conservative county and ended up spending a night in jail. It was both humiliating and illuminating. This information isn't readily available on Google. I even tried searching for it myself after our conversation, but it's not easily accessible without going through one of those background check sites that require a fee. Scott's level of detail made it clear he had likely paid for a report on me. His question was framed as part of research, and he wanted clarification on whether the incident had happened in one state or another. I had lived in both, but there's no straightforward way to connect them without paying for background information. Caught off guard, I answered truthfully that the incident was over a decade ago and was the result of unusual circumstances. I then excused myself and returned to my office, feeling increasingly unsettled as I processed the conversation. The longer I thought about it, the more disturbed I became. Scott wants to advance in his career, and while I feel a follow-up conversation is warranted, I was initially unsure of how to address it. A blunt approach like, "You seriously crossed a boundary, and this behavior won't go over well with future managers," felt a bit harsh. Yet, in this aggressive office culture, people frequently discuss their backgrounds in surprising detail with coworkers and subordinates. While I can appreciate the value of transparency, especially in a setting where background checks are part of the hiring process, I'd prefer to keep my personal background private. My issue was less about hiding the incident and more about how and why Scott accessed the information. Update. I intended to follow up with him, but he actually initiated the conversation first. As soon as I approached his desk, he brought up the topic again, this time with my booking photo pulled up on his screen. I reacted more decisively, instructing him to close the window and then pulling him aside for a one-on-one discussion. I used almost the exact phrasing you suggested, emphasizing the importance of respecting boundaries and privacy for everyone in the workplace. Scott seemed genuinely confused by my response. From his perspective, looking up someone's background was perfectly reasonable, and his justification for bringing it up was to alert me that the information was accessible. I explained that his actions showed extremely poor judgment, especially in researching a manager and then bringing it up multiple times. I pointed out that the company had already conducted a background check and hired me, which should have indicated that there was nothing problematic. I informed him that his behavior was unacceptable and that I would be documenting our conversations. I made it clear this could jeopardize his future with the company. In hindsight, I believe Scott was a smart individual who made a glaringly poor decision. Yes, I documented everything in detail. I also discussed the matter with HR and my boss, who was prepared to terminate Scott. HR was stunned by his actions, but handled the situation professionally. They agreed to support my documentation plan and noted that Scott was on his final warning. Did Scott end up getting promoted? Not while I was there. Despite the incident, he did make genuine efforts to improve and became a better team member. We eventually parted on decent terms. I even remember he read AAM for workplace guidance. After lockdown hit, my industry was among the hardest hit. I've since transitioned to a new industry and found a position with a much better work-life balance and a more reasonable workplace culture. While I sometimes miss my old career, I'm happier and far more settled now. As for Scott, I have no idea where he ended up, but I wish him well. I definitely won't be Googling him. Am I the jerk for asking my soon-to-be ex-husband why I'd take him back when the nanny does more for the family than he does? My husband and I are separated and getting a divorce. We have a 3-year-old and an 8-year-old. He owns his own business, and he had told me he'd get home at 5:30 to 6 every night. I get home around 6 or 6:30, so I never questioned that he always seemed to get home before I did. I had our 3-year-old in extended care at daycare and our 8-year-old in her school's after-school program because I believed he was working. Halfway through the school year last year, I hired a nanny instead of using the extended care programs because our oldest had some issues with her program. About 2 weeks in, I got a call from the nanny saying my soon-to-be ex-husband had locked them out of the house. He told her to take the kids to the park, but they were hungry and she didn't have car seats. His house is within walking distance of their school and daycare, so the nanny didn't need car seats to pick them up. I called him to ask what was going on, and he said he had gotten home early and wanted some space from the kids and didn't want a random 18-year-old in the house. I had to leave work early to let the kids inside. While I was talking to the nanny, she mentioned that he was always home when she arrived with the kids. She also told me he was consistently difficult, demanding that she and the kids stay away from him, ignoring them when they tried to talk to him. That was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. I filed for divorce by the end of the next week, and the kids and I moved out by the end of the following month. I ended up letting that nanny go, and now we have Amina, a 24-year-old Middle Eastern refugee with 3 kids of her own, who are 2, 4, and 7. Hiring Amina is one of the best decisions I've ever made. I come home every day to a clean house, homework done, and some of the best Arabic food I've ever tasted. I have no idea how she manages to do it all, but having her around allows me to truly enjoy my time with my kids. Instead of scrambling to make dinner, clean up, and get my 8-year-old to do her homework, I can spend quality time with them. Amina does the grocery shopping, keeps track of school events, and even handles things like clothes shopping for the kids and school supplies. My ex never did any of that. Once, I left him with the kids for a week while I went on a work trip, and they lived on McDonald's and pizza. When I got home, the house was in the worst shape I'd ever seen. Our then 2-year-old ran out of clean clothes, and instead of washing her clothes, he just bought her new clothes. Now, my ex has been asking about getting back together. He claims that being together would be better for the kids. I told him he's never really thought about what's best for the kids. Even when he has them for the weekend, all he does is take them to his mother's house. I asked why I should get back with him when Amina does more for us than he ever did. He argued that he works to provide for us, but somehow saw my working almost double his hours for similar pay as different. Now his family is accusing me of being a bad mom and saying that if I really cared about the kids, I'd want them to have 2 parents. You don't have to give a reason to anyone for not wanting to reconcile. If they insist, then I found that I'm happier, the kids are more stable, and our lives run more smoothly as things are right now. That's it. No one is owed an explanation for your decision, not even your ex. Not the jerk. Your kids already have 2 parents. It's not like one of them just disappears because you divorce. Actually, your kids didn't have a decent father while you were married. This way, at least you're only parenting 2 kids. Not the jerk. Even separated, the kids still have 2 parents. Logically, on paper they do anyways. Realistically, their dad isn't doing anything to provide for them and wasn't doing anything for them before. So having him around the house really doesn't help you or benefit the kids at all. Love how everyone says the father wasn't doing anything for the family when he literally ran his own business and paid for everything they needed. And thanks to the court system, he's still going to be paying for everything they need with all the alimony and child support he's going to be paying her from now on. Karen complains to our hotel, so I cancel her reservation. Here I am working the front desk at the hotel, enjoying a perfectly normal Sunday night when I get a phone call. It's 11 p.m. and most sane people have already decided to bed down in preparation for tomorrow. So imagine my surprise when one of my few remaining arrivals lets me know that they have a 1-year-old and that they need a crib. Cribs are on a first-come, first-served basis. These people are calling at 11 at night on the day of their arrival. I go and check for cribs. Shock of shocks, there are none left. The person on the phone insists that they put on their reservation that they need a crib. I go and look on the reservation. Nope, there is no such indication. I advise the person on the phone, the wife as it turns out, that we're out of cribs, that they're first come first serve, and they've all been taken. She hangs up on me. Fine, whatever. Maybe they'll buzz off and find other accommodations. Ha! You know darn good and well that's not how this story goes. Man walks into our lobby, tells me he needs to check in. Okay, I ask his name. He tells me, and I immediately recognize it as the name of the person who called before. Lucky me. He confirms that we have no cribs left and launches into a tirade about how it's on his reservation. It's not. It's our fault if something happens to his baby, and he feels that the conditions are unsafe. He proceeds to try to argue every possible way to place liability on the hotel for his failure to prepare. Finally, I've had enough. Well, sir, I don't want you to be in a situation where you feel unsafe. I'll just cancel your reservation, and you can contact the third party with whom you've made your original reservation, and they can find you a hotel that has a crib. This guy has a lawsuit waiting to happen, and I'm not interested in listening to the story about his baby getting hurt through his failure to prepare, and now he's blaming the hotel. He smugly informs me that it's prepaid and I can't cancel it. Wanna bet? Watch this. I make the necessary clicks, and it's gone. Folks, I want a snapshot of the face he made when he realized that not only I could cancel his reservation, but I did. That wide-eyed, fleeting moment of shock and awe. It was at this moment that he knew he messed up. He storms out to his car, comes back in with his wife. You know, the one who hung up on me earlier? She tells him to shut up and shushes him. Good on her. That was a smart move. But alas, that's the only smart move she makes. "We have a 1-year-old baby," she says. "My baby is your problem. We can't go anywhere else. I don't want to try searching for another hotel. You need to bring our reservation back. I was really looking forward to trying to incriminate your hotel. We can't call the company we made the reservations with. If we don't stay here, I can't sue you for my ineptitude. We don't have any choice. I don't like the choice you gave me." This goes on, with both of them getting more and more heated. The husband threatening to dial 911. Good luck. They take at least an hour to get here, and they do nothing when they arrive. I start thinking I'm going to be stuck with these idiots forever when the wife decides to bless me with her kindness. Thanks to this woman, I receive a solution to this situation so I can get them out of my hair and make them someone else's problem. The solution? I am going to sue you, and I am going to film you. Oh, thank you, lady. Thank you for your help. Without your stupidity, I'm not sure how I would have gotten rid of you. I inform the woman that because she's threatened legal action, I'm no longer able to assist them and they should speak to the company's lawyers. Turn around and go to the back room, close and lock the door. Come out 5 minutes later and they're gone, never to be seen again. Say it with me. A failure to prepare on your part does not constitute an emergency on mine. Also, per the title of this post, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Speaking of hotels, what's your favorite hotel you've ever stayed at? Please let us know. I'm quite fond of Motel 6 myself. Am I the jerk for banning my little cousin from my room? I, female 20, have a Barbie doll collection. I've been collecting them for my entire life. I have over 30 collectible and limited dolls, all still in box in perfect condition. They're on display in my room. My parents invite my little cousins over quite a bit, and of course, they come in my room sometimes to look at the dolls. I don't mind. They know not to touch. One of my cousins, let's call her Anna, who's 12, seemed particularly interested in my dolls. She was asking me which ones were my favorite, most valuable, ones I had the longest, etc. I was showing her my favorite one that I got it when I was a kid, and it's worth about $500. It's my favorite doll. After I finished telling her about it, we left my room and we all went downstairs to chill. I noticed all my cousins were playing except for Anna, who had disappeared sometime while everyone else was still playing. I didn't think much of it, just thought she was in the bathroom or outside playing. But after about 15 minutes, I got suspicious and went upstairs to my room. There was Anna, playing with my $500 Barbie doll. She not only opened it, but completely destroyed the box in the process. My heart dropped. I lost it. I screamed at her and told her she was never allowed in my room again. She started crying, saying she didn't know she couldn't play with it, but that's a lie. I always tell them to look, not touch. It also felt suspicious she opened the one doll I told her was the most important to me. When my aunt came back to pick my cousins up, Anna ran to her saying I yelled at her for playing with my toys and banned her from my room. My aunt was furious with me and demanded that I apologize to Anna. I refused and told my aunt she owed me a new doll. My aunt told me no doll should be worth $500 and she will not replace it. My family is divided over this. Some are on my side, but some say that I can't expect my aunt to pay $500 for another doll. So, am I the jerk? Small update. I've decided to send this thread to the family group chat along with proof of what the doll is worth. As some people have pointed out, the doll is actually worth nearly $1,000. I think I'll be able to get more family on my side, and hopefully my aunt will read it too and see that she is wrong. Small update too. After sending this thread to my family group chat, I have everyone on my side. They understand that this isn't just a toy, but something of real value. Still, no word with my aunt, but I am hopeful my family will be able to influence her to replace the doll without having to go to court. Also, some of you seem to think I just had the doll laying around and was waving it in front of her, teasing her that she couldn't play with it. That wasn't the case. I've had this collection since I was a baby, so the dolls are no secret to anyone in my family. She also doesn't play with dolls, never has. The way she ripped the box excessively makes me near 100% sure that this was done on purpose. Tell your aunt to pay, or you'll let a small claims court decide, not the jerk. This. Plus, buy a lock for your door and no longer let any of them in your room unsupervised. Set up a camera too. This kid is way too old for this behavior, and you should definitely sue over the price to replace it because you can never be sure you'll get a proper replacement for list price plus all the emotional investment. File the claim, and any flack you get should be met with, "What kind of parent raises a kid to the age of 12 that doesn't understand not to touch or destroy other people's valuables?" I have collectibles, and this hits home. I wouldn't bother with threats at this point. I'd rather go right to filing a lawsuit of around $1,000 or so and go from there. Not the jerk. I'd even threaten to take your aunt to small claims court. Your cousin is old enough to know fully well what she was doing. Buying a replacement is the least your aunt can do. She can't truly make up for the fact all of your efforts over the years of you treasuring and keeping that doll pristine and untouched have been deliberately trashed. The cousin even went out of her way to find out and target the doll most precious to you. If you don't fight to make them recognize the importance of your doll and the gravity of what your cousin has done, no one else will. $500 from their pocket to yours only goes part way to teaching them the lesson. Your cousin should be punished on top of that, but you only have control over access to you and your room from now on to levy that yourself. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you go ahead and sue your aunt or not? Please let us know. $1,000 for a Barbie doll? Talk about a hedge on inflation. Taking the work news to the news. I'm still unsure if it's really compliance, but my ex-employer announced some news regarding our jobs. It was obviously false, but instead of calling the BS, I treated it exactly as I would have if it was true, and it bounced back in their face. It was a while ago when I was working in a community-based organization. We provided end-of-the-line shelter for people and did rights advocacy in a medium town, about 100,000 people. The salary was low but okay, but most employees were there because they believed in what we did. The main problem was the manager. She didn't act accordingly to the set of values the organization was based on. She was grossly overpaid compared to employees, took everything personal, made sure we were cut off from the administrators, and created an atmosphere where people feared retribution. We were unionized, but after a few months, I realized no one was ever filing complaints, even for trivial matters, because they feared she was going to lash back at them. Turns out she had done it to a few people in the past. Once I figured I wasn't going to stay there much longer, I decided to sign all of the complaints I could. According to union, I could sign anything I witnessed, even if I wasn't the target, and figured I would see them to the end and leave. That way, administrators could claim not knowing, and there was a chance for my colleagues to have a better work environment. So, of course, the next few months were horrible. She picked on me regularly. Still, most people sided with me, at least privately, most of them fearing she would do the same treatment to them if they declared it publicly. One morning, she calls a staff meeting and explains that a large amount of complaints have been filed in the last months, looks at me, and the cost to settle them or to pay the lawyers to fight them might bankrupt the organization, and everyone is thus at risk of losing their job soon. Insert ominous music. Panic ensues. My colleagues are crying. They're calling their significant others. A lot of people are begging me to take them back, stating she got the lesson. Some of them are genuinely upset at me. In my opinion, it was obviously BS made to turn them against me. I mean, the sole emergency housing of a 100,000 people city, annually filled at 115% capacity, would be closing for a dozen complaints where I'm not even asking for money in any form, over legal fees which are usually budgeted in advance? Come on, it's basic fear brewing schemes. Normally, I would have questioned it during the meeting or tried to reason with them afterwards, but that time, I decided to comply with the narrative and treat it as true. I left for my break and did what I would have done if we were really closing, appealing to the public outrage to help us fulfill our mission. I called the news, told them verbatim the morning announcement, the service hole it would create in the community, the job impact it would have in the city, etc. The local news picked it up. They called the manager and administrators about running the story, questioning how come there were enough complaints to threaten a 35-year-old pillar of the community services, asking what the complaints were about, etc. Before 4 p.m. that same day, we had another meeting to explain that we must have misunderstood the first meeting, as the organization was in no way, shape, or form in danger of closing. Sure, we must have misunderstood. Moral of the story: Let those who brewed the trouble drink it. Too casual for work. For context, I have a few piercings, dyed hair, rainbow glasses, and a sticker-clad cane. People are going to stare anyway. May as well give them something to stare at. I'm also pretty casual. I afford expected respect to people, but especially since I work in fast food and only have a few coworkers, I, and my other coworkers and managers, don't see a reason to be excessively professional. I was hired with all of these visible and have never been told to remove them. Both GM and regional manager know. A new manager got hired. She met me about a week ago. Within 3 days of meeting me, she started commenting on a lot of my behavior and appearance, to the point of demanding I fix my appearance immediately, when I told her I didn't see how my appearance affected my ability to do my job. Now, I have no problem removing the piercings or dyeing my hair a more natural color, but my glasses are pretty necessary for my current situation. I can sort of see about 4 or 5 feet away with them. Without them, I'm basically useless, and nothing can fix it at this point, so I've stopped bothering with an ophthalmologist. And I speak to my coworkers the way they speak to me. We're all pretty casual and friendly. Also, the only thing she noted that was maybe against policy is the earrings, but we're technically allowed 2 stud piercings, and that's what I have. Either way, whatever. I was fine taking them out. But in a stroke of genius, I went, all right. I took out my piercings and tucked my hair into my hat. She decided to insist my glasses were just aesthetic, because of course, real people who need glasses only wear black or metal frames. So I took them off, got sent back to work. At this point, everything is gray, so one of my coworkers led me back to my spot on the line. She then got on me about my performance dropping and accused me of doing it to spite her. I told her I couldn't see, and then she started nagging me about how I needed to treat her with respect. She's not my friend. And once again commented on how casually I talk to people. So I drew inspiration from one of my favorite video game characters and started speaking like Fischl. Not well, but enough that it was obvious what I was doing. Alas, without my spectacles, 'tis but a blur. I also ignored her or pretended not to understand if she used any informal terms towards me. Those shenanigans continued until another manager came in, saw me without my glasses, and got on the new manager, and told me to put everything back to normal. Apparently, I look like a legal issue waiting to happen without my glasses and piercings. I overheard things like, I just don't feel appreciated for the work I do here, and Acer was being intentionally obstinate. I also overheard the older manager tell her that I am, in fact, legally blind and had every right to pursue legal action for an ADA violation. I don't know the laws well enough to know if it was, nor would I have had the money to sue, but the idea someone would assume I could made me feel a bit satisfied. I ended up getting my ability to wear my piercings returned too, endorsed by the GM and everything. Not the thing I cared about, but a nice pro. I'm pretty sure I've angered the new manager though. Oh well, I don't talk to her, she doesn't talk to me, and that's fine. She's been the subject of criticism by my coworkers though, and I'm pretty sure if your entire store has 7 active employees, you're not going to last long there when none of them like you. Am I the jerk for leaving the restaurant after my boyfriend refused to pay for my meal? I had lent my boyfriend some money a few weeks ago because of something he needed, and he promised to pay me back ASAP. He was supposed to pay me back 5 days ago, but something came up and he didn't. I tried to be patient. Yesterday, we had planned to go out with some friends at night for dinner. Yesterday, after I came back from work, I was robbed on the bus, and I had all my money and cards stolen. I canceled my cards, but the bank customer service told me my new card with my new details, both physical cards and the digital details for Apple Pay, would be available the following morning because the banks were closed that afternoon, so I had no money. When we went to dinner with my boyfriend and friends, I told my boyfriend if he could just pay me back the money or at least pay for my meal since I have no money. He didn't exactly say yes or no, just a simple, "Don't worry." After we ordered, he only ordered for himself and told me that he can't cover for mine at the moment, so I better not order anything and just have some bites from his meal. I was so mad and frustrated because he had promised to give me back the money. He then claimed something came up and couldn't give them back, but then ordered a nice meal for himself and just told me to get his scraps because he wouldn't pay me back, or at least for my meal. I'd be the only one sitting there with no meal in front of me. I said this is ridiculous, and I got up and left. Our friends now believe it was very low of me to get up and leave, and how I should have just been polite and stayed there. I can't quite understand that logic, but is there any way I am the jerk here? Not the jerk. You may want to reconsider your relationship here. Did you tell your friends or your boyfriend that you were robbed? If yes, and they acted like this, then they are not your friends. OP. Yes, my boyfriend was the first person I told, and I told my friends before we sat down at the restaurant. And none of them offered to pay for you? I stand by my comment. Some friends you have. Not the jerk. Get better friends and a boyfriend. Also, get your money back. At this point, she needs to leave that sorry excuse for a boyfriend and bring him to small claims court to get her money. She's never going to get it back willingly and is walking all over her. Excuse me? Your friend said what? OMG, I would be fuming. Your boyfriend completely humiliated you, and your friends who were there don't see this as a problem? Dump the boyfriend and the friends, not the jerk. OP. Yes, they also said I ruined the mood and caused a scene by leaving, and I made it awkward for everyone there. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. If that were us, I would have poured my drink all over your head before walking away. Am I the jerk for insisting to be called doctor by my boyfriend's father? I, 27 male, have been dating my boyfriend, 26 male, for about 3 years now, and have known his family for a little bit under that. His father is a doctor, and when we met for the first time, asked me to call him Dr. XYZ. Edit, he's a PsyD for those wondering. I didn't know this was all that relevant, which is why I wasn't specific. Personally, I think this is weird, especially since he still insists on it despite me having known him for well over 2 years now. That being said, my boyfriend assured me it's just a matter of respect for him because that is his professional title and that I shouldn't think anything of it. He calls his father Dad or by his first name, but has told me that in the past, his dad sometimes asked to be called Doctor, similar to how someone would want to be called Sir. I just recently finished my PhD and now am officially a doctor too. Like I said, I don't put too much stock into professional titles, but it is cool to finally be done with it, and I've been bragging recently, just because it's such a big achievement for me. When meeting up with my boyfriend's family, I told everyone that I had finished my degree, and they all congratulated me, including my boyfriend's dad, who told me, "Congrats, OP, but don't expect me to start calling you doctor." I wasn't really expecting him to do that, to be honest, but the way he said it really struck me, so I replied, "Why not? I've given you the professional courtesy," to which he said, "That's not the same." At this point, I'm really confused, because I didn't mean for this to turn into an actual argument, but I'm just really confused by the sudden shift attitude. I respond by saying, "I don't really see how it's different. I never understood why I should address you as doctor, to be honest, and was always told it was a matter of professional courtesy. Now, I'd like the same courtesy back, or I'm not going to give it to you anymore." The argument just sort of went in circles from there until I eventually said, "Whatever, I'm just not going to respond to you calling me by my first name anymore," and did that consequently for the rest of the night. When my boyfriend and I got back home, he got mad at me for trying to one-up his dad and causing a fight. I do feel like I could have dropped it. Like I said, I don't really care about being called doctor, but at the same time, I feel like his dad's behavior was complete BS. Not the jerk. Stand your ground, OP. You are just as much of a doctor as he is. In fact, the title doctor was originally used to reference PhDs, while medical doctors were called physicians, so the title is actually more fitting for you. Edit. OP updated his post that the dad has a PsyD, not an MD. The audacity. OP, feel free to require that he call you doctor if he continues to insist that you do the same. OP, your boyfriend's dad is somehow either too much of a snob or he has a severe inferiority complex. I know a lot of people with higher education, including medical professionals, and no one would tell their kids' partners to call them by their professional title in family situations. And I would ask your boyfriend if he's really this comfortable with his dad talking to you in such manner. His dad may be academically educated, but his rudeness and lack of manners makes him no better than a rock. No offense to rocks. If he insists on being referred to by his professional title as a professional courtesy, he should have no problem applying that logic in reverse. I think the real issue you've unearthed is it was never about professional courtesy. It was a power play on his part. Not the jerk. Not the jerk, but your boyfriend and his dad are. His dad's behavior is ridiculous, making you call him doctor in non-professional circumstances, and it sounded insecure of him to announce that he wouldn't give you any professional courtesy back once you got your PhD. Am I the jerk for not correcting my kids who told my ex's wife she's not their mother? I have 2 sons, ages 10 and 12, with my ex. We broke up over a number of issues, one of which was Emily, a woman he had worked with for years. The 2 of them grew very close, and she was always telling me how my ex deserved better than me, that I was trying to steal his family away from him. A few times she even pretended to be his wife during work functions, and my ex would laugh them off, as well as that he was really bad with money and other stuff. After we separated, he made things official with Emily, which came as no surprise to me. Emily was even more openly hostile when she realized my ex's family still liked me and would still include me. Not to mention when she realized my boys weren't super happy she was their dad's new girlfriend. Emily actually insulted my ex's mom for saying I was the best mom when they were all having a family dinner. My ex got a firm warning from the judge about using Emily to do exchanges of our boys and to deal with custody issues. This was after her confronting me a number of times during exchanges in front of my kids, and of her showing not just hostility, but saying things that could be taken as alienation of a parent. He continued to allow this, and X was fined for breaching the judge's orders. He was told if it happened again, custody would be modified. Recently, there has been an increase in the anger towards me. Emily is unable to have kids, and she wanted the boys to consider her a mom. They asked me for help, and I said nope, that Emily was not their mother, and I wasn't going to encourage them to consider her one after the years of mistreatment from her. The boys had an award night back at the start of June at school, and while there, Emily told the boys to get in photos with her for the school newsletter. They said no. She told them she wasn't asking. They said she wasn't their mom, so she couldn't say that. My ex scolded the boys, but I said nothing. X and Emily said I should have backed them up and not allowed disrespect. I told them I did not find what they said to be disrespectful. They have claimed I'm a bad parent and I should not have let my kids get away with that, and that I'm teaching them to be disrespectful, etc. So now here I am to find out. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. They stated facts. Also hilarious that they're complaining about not showing respect. Does this behavior qualify going back to get the custody modified in your favor? Because honestly, your boy's mental health is going to be continuously harmed by these 2 jerks. Am I the jerk for telling my friends and partner they're not the most important aspect of my life? So I, 18 female, recently got an amazing opportunity to study abroad, and I couldn't be happier or more grateful for it. I would be moving to an entirely different continent, and I'll be gone pretty much the rest of my life, meaning I want to make a life abroad and not get back to my country once I finish my degree. My family knows this, and it's completely okay with it. However, my friends and partner didn't seem so thrilled. They said it could be dangerous to go out on my own, and that I'm practically burning bridges with them by getting to the other side of the world. At first, I brushed it off as a completely justified concern and assured them we could still be friends and promised to visit often. I also told my partner that I understood having a virtual relationship would be tough and not for everyone, and I told him I would totally understand if he needed time to think about it or just break it up and remain friends. But it was getting annoying, especially with my partner. He said I wasn't even giving a chance to the life I could have with him in our home country, and that I wasn't really thinking of everyone that loved me and didn't want me gone. My friends supported him and ganged up on me this past week. I was fed up at that point and told them they were a far cry from being the most important thing of my life, and that this is the future I've always imagined for myself. After that, everyone got mad at me, and my partner told me to never contact him again. The rest of my friends have been ghosting me. I know the phrasing wasn't the best, and they have a right to think I'm insensitive and to be mad at me. I also know an apology is in order for the way I expressed myself, but I also think I did what was best for myself, and honestly, what I said was the complete truth. My mom thinks I should just board the plane and never spare them another thought, but some of my cousins think I went too far and I was a big jerk. Edit. Hi. First, I'd like to thank you all for your kind and encouraging messages. I really appreciate your kindness and advice. I'd also like to clarify, everyone knew I was going to leave one way or another. It was all I talked about when the topic of plans for the future popped up. My ex knew this too, as we were close friends before being together, but we both avoided the topic and just focused on the moment and seeing how our relationship would develop. I admit it wasn't the most mature thing to do, but being 15, there wasn't really much room for rationality. Finally, my decision is final. Only divine intervention would stop me from doing this. I was just conflicted to whether or not I should apologize. I agree with your mom. If they cared for you, they would want the best for you to be happy, not want to hold you back. Not the jerk. Yeah, this screams of the crab mentality. It's 2022. There's nowhere in the world that is more than 2 days of flying away. The friends and partner just seem jealous of OP's opportunity. Not the jerk. I don't even talk to the people who were my friends at 18. Go on and don't look back. If they were your real friends, they'd tell you the same. Not the jerk. Friends come and go, so do boyfriends. While yes, studying abroad on your own can be dangerous, it's an opportunity that doesn't show up easily. Could you have worded it a bit more nicely? Sure, but they were trying to hold you back, and that's not cool. It's better to crash and burn following a dream than playing it safe and be tormented by what could have been. Godspeed, and be safe while you make your life abroad. You're the jerk. Your friends care about you and were going to miss you, and your partner wanted a life with you, and you basically told them, buzz off, I'm leaving. They have a right to be mad at you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend and friends? Please let us know. This would have made for a great series finale. Would have been a real tearjerker. Am I the jerk for not wanting to attend my girlfriend's boss's wedding? My girlfriend, 23, and me, 24, male, have been together for over 2 years. While I'm finishing my last year of my degree, she started as a physiotherapist at the start of the month. She joined a group of practitioners in another village, which is 2 hours away from where I study, so obviously we don't see each other as much as we used to. Therefore, I've promised to keep as much weekends free for her as possible, giving up time with my own family and friends. I don't mind this because I love her and enjoy spending time with her. Recently, her new boss is getting married and invited my girlfriend over to the wedding and said that I could come too. Since the wedding falls on a Saturday, my girlfriend thought I would be coming, so she RSVP'd. I'm kind of annoyed because I really don't feel like going to a wedding where I literally don't know a soul, and she would only know 3 people tops. When I told her, this was like 3 weeks ago, she got mad and said that I already was breaking my promise to her. I feel like I did not break any promise. I still kept the weekend free for her like I told her. She's not obligated to attend the wedding and certainly can't force me to go. I told her she can go if she wants to, but that it will be without me. If she wants to spend time together, she will not go. She's still calling me a jerk over this. She's still mad at me and brings it up anytime she can, which drives me nuts. My mom also tells me I'm in the wrong, but my friends think I should stand my ground. Edit. Thank you for all the replies. I get that I did exclude a couple of key factors because I don't like sharing too much info about my personal life, but I realize I am in fact the jerk. People telling me to suck it up doesn't really sit right with me, but you have made me realize that I'm blowing this way out of proportion and should just go with her and make the best of it. Thanks to all the people who gave good, nuanced advice. I'll take it to heart. You're the jerk. You love her and know that this is important and unavoidable for her. It's not like she's attending a wedding every week. Learn to think of her interests instead of yours. Alone. Apologize and attend. You're the jerk. 1. Your girlfriend wants to go. 2. It's important for her, professionally, to attend her boss's wedding. 3. You promised to leave the weekends open for her. And 4. You have no other plans that weekend. Yes, sometimes having a girlfriend means attending weddings, etc., where you don't know a lot of the people and would prefer not to attend. Just like she has to have dinner with your parents. I sympathize, but it goes with the territory. If you don't like it, break up and be alone for the rest of your life, because this sort of thing is likely to happen with any significant other. Grocery store employee accuses me of stealing. Worst mistake she ever made. I'm male, 24, if it means anything, I guess. So the title sounds bad, I'm sure. This afternoon, I had to take off from work for a few hours to take my grandma to a doctor's appointment. As such, I was dirty from working and in my normal work clothes, denim shirt and jeans along with some greasy boots. While she was in at the appointment, I went to the Safeway across the street, the one I shop at for her every week to get groceries and whatever else she needs, to get her some baby aspirin and find myself a Gatorade. While I was looking around, trying to find a cold one, I noticed the olive bar. You fill up a container with olives and then you wait at the register. So I got myself a container of olives and peppers and went walking off to the register. The deli manager, who I've talked to 100 times at this store, mind you, yells to me, "You need us to label that so you can pay." They haven't ever done this, so I asked her, "When did that start?" "It's always been like that. Bring it over." "No, it hasn't. I've always waited at the register." "What's the code for them? If you've done it at the register before, you'll know the code." I leave it up to the cashier. Then I started walking to the register. She then yells at me, "This is why we have to raise prices. People like you." So I said some things I'm not proud of. I'll paraphrase here. I walked up to the deli counter and asked her directly, "Are you accusing me of trying to steal olives?" "I didn't accuse you of anything." "Oh, good. Because for a minute there, I thought you were being a profiling jerk and accusing me of stealing $2 worth of olives when I spend around $1,000 a month in this store." And when I went to walk away, she said something under her breath and stared at me while I walked away, then shouted, "Next time, just pay for them." So I turned around and called her everything I had boiling up and told her to call the cops and I'll stand right here with the olives I'm trying so hard to steal. And then I said, "Don't worry, I can wait a minute for your big self to get around here to detain me since I'm such a criminal." She then waddled off into the back office and I went off to find the floor manager and told him what happened. Then he looked upset and went off to go find her. I set the crap down and just left because I wasn't about to give them any business. Anyway, am I the jerk? Edit. The manager of the store agreed that the store policy is to weigh the olives at the checkout, and he also apologized and stomped off towards the deli after I told him who the worker was that did that. So anyone questioning policy, hopefully that clears things up. How is anyone excusing this absolute tantrum? You're the jerk. You're a grown man. If an employee of the store states that policy is to get a sticker at the deli, get a sticker. Insulting her like that was so unnecessarily cruel. Her job is to make sure you pay for the olives, and even if she was rude about it, I doubt that was the case. No one deserves the kind of insults you used. PSA. If you're posting something like, "Am I the jerk for going off on this worker or stranger, etc., it's probably going to be that you're the jerk. Yeah, sometimes they did something to provoke you and you may feel like you have a leg to stand on, but you're just a jerk if you choose to escalate the situation and lay into people. You can always just walk away. Exactly. Yelling is so rarely necessary or justified. I wonder what universe y'all are living in. An employee insinuates you're stealing while you haven't even left the store, yells at you, and OP is expected to shrug it off? The employee deserved every word OP said. Unnecessarily cruel? The manager even confirmed it was checkout at the counter. So the employee was the real jerk here. Probably will get downvoted for this, but I don't care. I'd never let myself be treated the way that OP was. No, they did not deserve the personal insults. Asking her to call the manager to confirm or dismiss the process? Sure. Starting to hurl personal insults and yell? No. You're the jerk. It's people like you that make it extra rough for those working in customer service, such as the food sector. There's a shortage of workers, and since you didn't feel the need to have your stuff weighed because it wasn't your normal protocol, you had to unleash your word filth onto that employee. Not the jerk. This is a little something I like to call, she messed around and found out. Excuse me, but if you accuse me of stealing without proof, I will do whatever it takes to cause you to lose your job. But before that, I will do everything I can to ruin your day. To all these people complaining about your hurtful words, do you idiots think it doesn't hurt to be accused of stealing? Hopefully this jerk will learn to treat customers with respect now. Thanks for being a good person, not being a doormat, and putting this Karen in her place. It's about time someone taught her a lesson. By the way, if the roles were reversed, everyone would be siding with you. The only reason they're all excusing how she acted is because you're a dude. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the employee? Please let us know. If you accused me of stealing, I'd probably give you a piece of my mind too. But I don't think I would have taken it as far as he did. Karen cheated on me with her cousin. Now she's demanding to move back into my apartment and to bring him with her. So I, 21 male, have an ex, Angelica, 20 female. Angelica and I had an on and off relationship since we were about 15, but we got serious when lockdown hit and I had to move back to my hometown. We got an apartment together, and very soon after, she started spending a lot of time with her cousin. Long story short, she's been hooking up with him. We break up. We've been broken up for 9 months at this point. For 7 of those months, her phone has been on my phone bill, and she owes me over $500. Fine, whatever. I'll never see that $500, and she always makes excuses to pay me back. That's life. My own fault for letting her keep using me as a cash cow. She also took my car when we broke up, and I let her because I was too afraid she would try to take my apartment too. Anyway, it's 9 months past our breakup. I get a message. Hey, I'm pregnant. I'm on my way home from work, so I don't respond. That's 9 months past being my problem. It's not my baby. She messages me again. My boyfriend, the one she cheated on me with, and I have nowhere to stay. Still, 9 months past my problem. Angelica has never worked a day in her life. She lives off the disability check from her boyfriend and spends 99% of it on grass and fast food. She never paid rent and is documented to never pay rent. Anyway, she tells me, my name is still on the lease. We're going to move in September. I tell her, your name is not on the lease. It was renewed last month and I took your name off. I'm sorry. She messages me, calling me a jerk and saying she's moving in because she has nowhere for her baby and 3 dogs to stay. Mind you, my apartment is more like a studio and barely fits me, let alone 2 other people and 3 dogs. I tell her it's not happening. I'm moving out of town soon anyway. Also, come pick up her crap that she left at my apartment for 9 months. She says no, and if I throw it away, she's going to press charges. I tell her it doesn't matter, because when I move out, I'm throwing it away. She later called my landlord and told him I was planning to move out. I got upset at this and told her I ran the numbers on the car. It's still in my name. Get the car out of my name now, or I'm repossessing it, or she can leave me alone. She started bawling on a call, asking how I could do this to her and her unborn kid, and I was condemning her and her kid to be homeless. I'm really considering repossessing the car since it was mine from the start, and it still is in my name. She doesn't deserve to get a free car handed to her. She needs to wake up. She keeps saying she needs a place to stay. I'm ruining her and her baby's life. It's literally my apartment that she has never once paid rent on. I don't know how she thinks she's entitled to just live in my apartment with the guy she cheated on me with and 3 dogs. I hope the baby ends up okay. It's not its fault its mother is a spoiled brat, but I also hope being homeless and carless wakes her up. Am I the jerk for getting a medical practice shut down after leaving them a bad review? I, 20 female, moved to a new state 2 years ago. I have several chronic health problems and I needed new doctors. I looked online and found a few practices that sounded good. I even asked on Facebook for suggestions from people who have the same illnesses I do. Anyway, I made an appointment with a practice and saw the nurse practitioner. The appointment went normal at first. I saw the nurse and gave her the rundown of my diagnoses and medications I'm on, as well as doctors I would need referrals to see. The nurse wrote it all down and even asked me detailed questions about my illnesses, so I thought it was going good. Then I saw the nurse practitioner. She read my chart and also asked some questions which I answered. Then she asks me what specialties I wanted referrals to. This is where it went wrong. I told her I needed to see a neurologist, gynecologist, and gastroenterologist. I had seen many doctors in those specialties before and even brought my former charts to give her. She told me, "You don't need to see a neurologist. There's no reason for you to." I told her I did because she can't prescribe some of the meds I was taking. "Well, you don't need those. There's no indication for that." I said, "Okay." She then asked why I wanted to see a gynecologist. I said, "Because I'm having XYZ issues, and my former gyno before I moved wanted some further testing based on my symptoms." "Oh, you don't need to see one. Everyone goes through that." I told her that I had been in the ER every month for 6 months straight with how bad my cramping had been. She still refused. Regardless of whether you think there's a problem that requires a gynecologist or not, it's my right to see one. Last but not least, she asked why I wanted to see a gastroenterologist. I had been having a really hard time keeping food down and was in a lot of pain every time I ate. She looked at me and said, "Oh, you're too big to have any problems there." I left crying that day. I went home and told my mom what happened, and she suggested I report her to the medical board. So I did. I didn't have any evidence, technically, so they couldn't really do anything. So I did what most people would do and made reviews online and posted about my experience in the local groups online. I got a phone call from their office manager asking me to take them down because people were leaving their practice. I wasn't the only one to come forward about how they treat patients. The office manager told me I should have just called them or came in to talk about it. I did not feel comfortable doing that. Am I the jerk for not going in and talking about it to them instead of blasting them on social media? Edit for those asking for clarification. The investigation took a few months. Once I was told the board couldn't do anything, I took to social media. The office reached out to me at that point asking me to take my post down. I didn't. It's been almost a year since they asked me to take them down. They no longer are in business. Also, some were wondering what country I'm in. I'm American, born and raised. My insurance requires referrals to doctors. Not the jerk. In my opinion, you are allowed to warn people about medical practitioners acting poorly. Social media is one of the only places we can, when they are a lot of times almost near untouchable. I agree. OP, you did other people a good service by posting that review, as it allowed others to have the strength to come forward and leave the practice, whereas before your review, they probably thought it was them who were in the wrong, not the practice. Not the jerk. Trust me, as someone who basically lived in and out of hospitals my entire life, you cannot trust any medical professionals, and most of them are just scum people who will accuse you of lying no matter what you are saying, and even if it is true. Have there been times where I've lied to them? Sure, but it's only because I needed something that they weren't willing to give me because they are greedy and they find joy in harassing people like me. This is why I have no problem with my medical debt, which is over $500,000 at this point, that I will never even attempt to pay back. You take advantage of my illness, I will take advantage of your crappy hospital. I'm even to the point where if I can steal something from the staff there, you bet your butt I will, and I have. Best lick I ever hit was some doctor's office that had these stupid army coins on the wall. I took every single one of them and bolted, made over $2,000 pawning that crap, and was able to buy what I actually needed from a friend. Gotta love karma. Well, what do you think? Was OP the jerk for leaving that review or not? Please let us know. Reviews should always be honest. OP did nothing wrong. Now as for that last commenter on the other hand, you want me to read the lease? If you say so. Backstory. I moved to the Big Apple in April from LA and signed a lease for an apartment sight unseen. It was the same price as my LA apartment, but while in LA, $1,350 gets you a master bedroom with a walk-in closet, private bath, and 3 roommates, in New York City, for the same price, they've turned my closet into the bathroom, and I now weigh 135 pounds thanks to the 7 flights of stairs that I had to walk up every day. Some days I would raise my arms to put on deodorant and scrape my elbows on the ceiling. One of my 5 roommates was an RN though, so there was the upside. The only saving grace was that this apartment was pet-friendly and had an in-unit washer and dryer. I hated living there, and after 2 months, when my job said I could work remotely, I packed up and went to the Caribbean. While I was there, I won the New York City housing lottery. For the first time in my life, I could afford to live by myself in New York City, of all places. I'd read in forums that landlords are usually pretty happy for tenants when they win and let you out of your lease no problem. Present. So in my optimism, I sent the management company an email letting them know that I won the lottery and wanted to discuss terminating my lease early. They told me to speak to the brokerage to get my room filled. The brokerage told me that I would need to pay a broker's fee of $1,350 and still pay rent until they filled the unit, or I could try and fill it myself. I find a guy who is already applying with a broker for another unit and he wants my room. Then management says they want the guy I found to pay $1,400. This is genuinely the worst apartment that I've ever lived in, and I don't feel right trying to get someone to pay $1,400 for this room. I'm in a bit of a time crunch as new guy wants to move in August 1st, so I need to hire movers to take my stuff to storage the next day. But if I don't get the approval from management that everything is good to go on their end, then there's no point. So I need management to agree to let this guy take over my lease for the price that is on my lease. I argue that a new price would be a new lease, and if they want to do that, they would have to release me from the lease and market the apartment at this new price point. They refuse, saying that I should pay the broker's fee or forfeit my deposit and continue to pay rent until they get my room rented. I'm upset because management basically wants to make more money and assume no risk. I would end up paying until they rent out the awful room to someone. I tell them this is unfair and it makes no sense. Then management tells me, well, there's no lease takeover in the lease. I'm confused because I vaguely remember reading something about a $500 fee for a lease takeover. Read your lease. We were doing you a favor before, but now we're only going by the lease, management tells me. So I find my lease because I remember there being this $500 clause. I never found the $500 clause because written on the first page of the lease was clause 2, length of lease. The term, that means length, of this lease is beginning on 2/1/22 and ending on 8/31/22. I'm elated. My move-in date for my new place is 8/25/22, so I no longer need to rush. All because management told me to read my lease. I give them back a call and request the email address to send my 30-day notice of intent to vacate, or if it should be mailed as it's not specified in the lease. Management tells me that I can't break the lease. I tell them I'm not. It ends next month. I send them a photo of the first page of the lease. He sputters and says, "You know it's a years-long lease. This is a typo. As you know, I just took over managing the building and I inherited some bad leases." I didn't know this, but I gleefully respond, "Well, I was doing you a favor before, but now I can only go by the lease. If the lease says my term ends next month, I have to honor that." He hangs up, furious that this is happening. At this point, I'm no longer concerned about hiring movers, so when he calls me back at 8 p.m., I'm ready to tell him the cutoff for the movers was 4 p.m. and that I will move out according to lease, but he starts the conversation in a somber, defeated voice. "You can move out on the 31st. We just have to go according to the lease. We will do a final walkthrough and give you back your deposit." As I'm still in the Caribbean, my cousin will be subletting for August, and I will be moving into my new apartment when I get back. Everything worked out in the end, all because I read my lease. So, what is the New York Housing Lottery? OP. The Housing Lottery, where I am grateful to be a winner, is further evidence that we, especially in New York City, live in a dystopian society. Basically, in New York City, when new construction happens, certain numbers of units are set aside for a lottery for low to middle income individuals to apply for. In exchange, the developers get tax breaks, so in the case of my unit, although it is built specifically with the intention of being a lottery unit, red, smaller, and different finishes, it would be at a market rate of probably $6,000. As a lottery winner, I'm paying $1,900 for the amenities included. Tens of thousands of people apply on the Housing Connect websites, so they randomize the numbers, and there are certain things you can do to improve your odds, but it is ultimately a lottery. Thanks. My sister lived in New York City a long time ago, had 2 apartments in Manhattan before she bought a condo in Fleetwood. She told me one was $900 a month, and it was about 30 years ago. It was basically an oversized closet. Am I the jerk for my response when my boyfriend brought up the apartment purchase in front of his family? Context. I, female 29, have been with my boyfriend, Adam, male 27, for 2.5 years. He's the quiet and shy type. It's very hard to get him to open up about what bothers him. For now, I'm the one with an income. We get along easily, though he can be a bit unreasonable sometimes. Example, he doesn't cook because he's worried I won't like his food, but he still cooks for himself, and the smell is pretty telling that his cooking is good. Another example is that he doesn't even do most chores, saying he's worried he might break or damage something. It's frustrating, but we're working on fixing it. Now, onto the more complicated issue. I'd put money aside since 2015 to buy an apartment, and I'm finally able to get it done this year. When I told him this, he got agitated and said I should wait a little longer until we're married, but I said no. He started complaining about how bad he feels about seeing me buy the apartment myself without having him contribute. I asked what I was supposed to do because it kinda sounded like a he problem. No offense, but he got so worked up and gave me 2 options. 1 is I put his name on the title. 2 is not to buy the apartment until marriage, so it'll become a shared marital asset. I said no, and that was final, and he should drop it. He did eventually. At his family's house, I was taken aback when he started complaining about the apartment and again told me to either put his name on the title or wait until marriage to buy it, because he feels like there's a huge power imbalance here and that he can't bring himself to accept it. He also said that it makes him feel like he contributes nothing. Well, does he? I snapped and said, The reason you feel like you contribute nothing is because you literally contribute nothing, and I suggest you fix that by actually finding a job and having a decent income." His family looked shocked. He glanced at me, then got up and walked away. I waited for him to come back, but he had to go home because his mom said he felt too overwhelmed and wanted some space. She then basically started shaming me for my statement and hinted about financial mistreatment and control over her son. He's not home yet, demanding another call about the apartment, probably expecting me to agree to one option. Edit in case it matters. He has a disability that limits his job opportunities. Not the jerk. 1. Second paragraph sounds a lot like weaponized incompetence. 2. He brought it up in front of family to get mama to back him. 3. He sounds like a bit of a leech, to be honest. 4. For what reason does he want his name on the title if he hasn't put money into it? The answer to that is so that he can break up with her, force the sale, and get money out of it. He doesn't have a job, so that would be the only way he's getting any money. Not the jerk. He doesn't cook, clean, or have a job. Why are you with him? He does cook, just not for her. In summary, my unemployed boyfriend who does no housework, refuses to cook, only for me, he will happily cook for himself, and contributes nothing financially, expects me to give him half of my apartment. He wants this to be a marital asset because he wants to be able to take half of it freely when he walks away. Girl, you are not the jerk, but why are you even in this relationship? So basically, he's insecure about the fact that you have enough money to buy your own place. He's then insisting that you do something that will allow him to have some ownership of it without earning it. Throw in the not doing chores and not cooking for other people, and this guy sounds like a spoiled kid. Please tell me you're not getting engaged. Seriously, think about this relationship. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. But I never understand how guys like him can get girlfriends. But then you've got me, 26, never married, no kids, make $90K a year, and I'm a gym rat. But I still get friend-zoned by every girl I try to date. They say because I'm so nice, they see me like a brother and don't want to move past that. Ready to give up at this point, to be honest. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. That guy sounds even more useless than you are, Reddit boy. Would I be the jerk if I refused to let my stepson come live with us full-time? My husband of 5 years recently mentioned that his 16-year-old son would like to come live with us permanently. We suspect that there might be issues at home with his mom and her new boyfriend, hence his change of mind. We had suggested this change 2 years ago when he started high school so he could be on top of his studies and athletic participation, but he stated he couldn't leave his mom. He would need to change school districts since we live 4 towns away. My husband works 14 days out of state and is home 5 days. If I accept, then that would mean I would be the primary caregiver for him, meaning transport to and from school, sports practice and games, meals, homework, bedtime, and everything else that comes with raising a teenager. I would know. I've raised 2 kids, my youngest being 20, and I've enjoyed these last 2 years being independent and child-free. He's a good kid, but I kinda like being on my own. I need to know before my husband and I have this conversation. Would I be the jerk if I said no? Edit. 2 years ago, my youngest was still in high school, so I was still parenting and my husband worked local, home every night. Now my kids moved away for college and the hubby is only home 5 days out of the month on average. These past 2 years, I've been working on my personal growth. I set a schedule and routine to fix my physical and mental health, and it's finally working. 16-year-old can't drive yet, but even if he could, we can't afford to purchase a vehicle, plus added insurance and school parking permit, not to mention gas and maintenance. Teenagers still require a lot of parenting. My kids had a strict 10 p.m. bedtime till they finished high school. If not, they would not wake up in time, making us all late for school and work. Yes, you would be the jerk, and he'd resent you and his father for the rest of his life. Edit for all the people disagreeing with me. I'm not saying she should take on all the responsibility here. Dad is absolutely also the jerk. I guess it's more of an everyone sucks here except the kid. But he's 16 and can presumably take care of himself mostly. The you would be the jerk is more about whether or not she wants to maintain a relationship with the kid. If he's rejected, their relationship isn't going to go smoothly and he's going to resent everyone. I mean, how sad for the kid. 2 crappy step-parents who don't want him and make him miserable. And 2 crappy biological parents who allow their spouses to displace their kid from their homes. It's not that she doesn't want him, it's that she doesn't want to become the sole and primary caregiver, which to be honest is a fair position. If her husband wants the son to live with them, and he absolutely should since this is his kid, then he needs to find a job closer to home and be there every day looking after his kid instead of outsourcing to his wife and showing up for 5 days a month. I think you should tell your husband that his son is welcome to move in when husband finds a job that lets him come home every day. It's not the son you have an issue with, it's the fact that his dad would not be there and you would be the sole parent 75% of the time. Not the jerk. With your husband being gone so much, the caregiving, driving to appointments, cooking, cleaning, etc. would almost entirely fall on you. It's reasonable for you to have a stepmother role, but not reasonable for any of the other people involved to think you would be okay raising this kid for the next 2 years pretty much on your own. If your husband wants his son to move in, then tell your husband he needs to figure out how he, dad, can be around more to raise him. Yep, you would be the jerk. When you marry someone that has kids, you're tacitly agreeing to being a parent. And what do parents do? What's best for the kid, even when they don't want to. Try not to be resentful. Remember, every adult had agency in this situation, and this kid had none. Parents do what's best for the kid, even when they don't want to? Apparently not. Apparently, parents dump their kids on OP to raise without them. When you become a step-parent, I think you agree to help raise your partner's kids. I don't think you agree to single-parent their kids for them while they live out of town most of the time. It seems pretty ridiculous you don't expect either the kid's mother or the kid's father to do what's best for their kid, but OP should step up and raise their kid for them so they don't have to make any changes to their lives and deal with the inconvenience of being his actual parents. How is OP the jerk when mom is the one with a problematic boyfriend and dad is the one whose plan for raising his own kid has changed from let his mother do it to let the other woman who isn't mother do it? I'm busy. You're the jerk. You married a guy with kids. This comes with the territory. Just that would make you the jerk. But you want to prevent him from escaping a bad situation? It has to be pretty bad if a teenager is willing to change high schools halfway through and move 4 towns away from all of his friends. Well, what do you think? Would OP be the jerk or not? Please let us know. Oh, I can't wait to read the comments we get about this one. Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend my ex comes first? I know the title sounds bad, but hear me out. I, male 37, was with my ex-wife, female 36. We will call her Elaine, for 15 years. We were high school boyfriend and girlfriend and married after university. We have 3 kids, all boys, 9, 8, and 5. We divorced a few years ago and have remained friendly so we can co-parent our boys as easily as possible. She is remarried and I get along with her new husband, who seems to be a good stepdad to my kids. I was single for a while as I focused on my boys and work, but I met my girlfriend, who we'll call Nicole, who's 27, about 3 months ago. I haven't introduced her yet to my kids, which has been upsetting her, but I've told her that 3 months for me is not a long enough or committed enough relationship to involve my kids yet. I do not want them getting attached or otherwise uncomfortable until I know for sure that this is the real deal. It was Elaine's birthday last week, and I told Nicole that I would be doing for her what I always do with our boys, and I wouldn't be available until later in the day. Nicole was upset with this as she wanted us to spend the day together, but it wasn't for anything special. Anyways, sorry this is dragging. Anyway, what I do on my ex's birthday is I go over in the morning, and with our sons, I help them make her breakfast. I get some flowers and a nice card and a present from them, and then they take it to her and give her breakfast in bed. My sons love doing this for their mom, and I always like to hear how happy it all makes them. Nicole was angry I did this, as she said it made her feel less important and like she would never come to ever mean as much to me in my life. I replied that Elaine is the mother of my kids, and that even though we are not in a relationship or in love, we have our boys, and I want our boys to grow up knowing that I always treated Elaine with respect even though we are no longer together. I do not want them thinking that we never cared about each other. Nicole says she doesn't want me doing this again whilst I'm in a relationship with her, and that I am the jerk for not putting her feelings first. She said it's obvious I still love Elaine, and I won't even give up this one day to put her over Elaine. I told her that I will always have a love for Elaine, as we were together a long time and have 3 kids, and nothing will ever change that. Nicole said if I do not promise to begin to restrict communication with my ex to make it just about the kids, she doesn't see how I can ever prove to her I care about her. So Reddit, am I the jerk for doing this for my ex on her birthday when I knew it would upset my girlfriend? Edit. Just to clarify, I do not take the breakfast to her in bed. Our oldest carries the tray. I just help the boys make the breakfast, and they go and present it to their mom. Edit 2. Wow, lots of responses. Thank you for taking the time to read and respond. I've answered some comments, and I will add the extra details people need clarifying. Her new husband and I will talk and have coffee and watch TV while the kids take the breakfast up. Her husband is the one who will have the boys awake and let me in so the kids and I can make the breakfast. Her husband will generally take Elaine out for dinner or plan something special, so I might end up taking the kids so they can be alone, as I understand he is now her husband and I have a diminished role in her life, but not my kids. The tradition started with my oldest when he was little and wanted to do something special for his mom on her birthday, so we've carried it on together as the boys have come along. My Karen stepdaughter is demanding my lotto winnings. To give some context, my estranged stepdaughter is 22. My significant other and I haven't seen her in 9 years. When she was 11, a bunch of drama went down, all based on lies. We knew her mom was behind this because we had 50-50 custody, but had been paying her child support like we only had stepdaughter every other weekend. After we had a few kids, significant other applied, and she had to end up paying him child support. Fighting the court battles that proceeded cost almost 6 figures in legal fees over the next 2 years, and I had to end up selling my house, which was my great-grandparents'. Selling my house meant I wasn't able to care for my ailing father. At a therapy appointment, stepdaughter told my significant other she would keep telling lies if he kept trying to take her from her mom. So he said, okay, contact him when she wants to have a relationship. The mom got what she wanted, child support until stepdaughter was 18. We were all devastated. Significant other sent her birthday and Christmas presents, cards and texts, but they moved and we didn't know where and they changed their numbers. Fast forward to now. 5 months ago, I won the lotto. Significant other and I aren't married and we have separate finances due to him being bad with money and me entering the relationship with more assets and then having to sell my house for stepdaughter's court battle. But I still take significant other's feelings into consideration with money. The money was a significant sum, but not rolling in money. Enough to put a good deposit on a house, deposits on cars, pay off debts, and put money into the kids' education, but still have mortgage, car payments, and bills. It's enough to set us up for life as long as we still work full-time. If we're smart with it, we might be able to retire early. We hadn't heard from stepdaughter or her mom in 9 years, apart from a message when a child support payment was 2 days late because significant other changed jobs. A week ago, stepdaughter reached out to significant other over text, a couple of pleasantry texts, and then she said she heard we won the lotto and was surprised we hadn't contacted her yet to help provide for her. After a bit of awkward stepping around the topic, she brought it back up that she expects a deposit for a house for her and her mom. I said absolutely not. Not only would that be as much or more than what our own kids would get, but I've already wasted a whole house on her and almost lost my family and life. I don't want to give her a cent and I want nothing to do with her. I admit I still resent her and everything I had to sacrifice for her lies. My significant other agrees a house deposit is out of the question, but his mom and sister got angry at him and now he thinks maybe we should give her a little bit. It wouldn't break the bank, but why would I give someone I don't like money when it could be used on our family and those I love? My significant other's mom and sister are saying I'm a jerk for not giving my estranged stepdaughter money. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. She wanted to tell lies to stay with her mom? Perfect. You are not part of her family, so you don't owe her anything. Not the jerk. You and significant other are not married. Her and her mom are not entitled to your winnings, and neither is significant other. Not the jerk. You could better justify giving money to a stranger walking down the street than those evil folks. They're only money-grubbing leeches. OP. That's exactly how I feel. Why would I give money to someone I dislike when I could help people I love some more? Well, what do you think? Should OP give some of that money to her stepdaughter or not? Please let us know. I'd use some of that money to get a restraining order against her is what I'd do. I'll still have my job long after you're gone, fool. I was working at a horrible postal station. Had a piece of rolling equipment get caught in a piece of broken tile and pop up then onto my toe, shattered the toenail. I was lucky not to have a broken toe from it too. So I'm on light duty, which meant I had to work the service window where people come to pick up packages, signature required mail, fill out change of address and hold mail forms, stuff like that. Remember, I have a foot injury. This means that getting around is not easy for me. Have a customer come in about an hour before closing, hands over 2 pick up your mail forms for certified letters. Y'all probably don't realize this, but In big city facilities, we don't have your certified mail sitting in a gold case all by itself, and postal workers staring wistfully at it wondering when we'll see you. No, we have your mail sorted out by the last number of your street address in trays with hundreds of other certified letters just like yours. This means it can take a while to find your mail when you finally drag yourself in to pick it up. So I go looking for those 2 letters. It was a recent enough thing that I checked the stand-up cubby we had for the latest certified to pickups. Ugh, not there. So I hobbled to the longer-term storage area, about 10 feet from the door. I finally find both letters and go to the window. The customer tells me that he wants to talk to the postmaster because I took 3 minutes to get his mail, and that was unacceptable. I tried to convince him to get the party more likely to be on the premises to handle his complaint, a supervisor. But nope, he's adamant about speaking to the postmaster. Hint, people, the later in the day it is, the less likely the postmaster will be there. But okay, you want the postmaster? You get the postmaster. I smile and tell him, sure, I'll go get him now. And I shut the Dutch door, with his mail still in my hand. You thought 3 minutes was a long wait? Ha! You just activated a union worker trap card, bub. Now, I did go to the postmaster's office first, but as usual, he wasn't in there. Still, I made a good faith effort to look there. I didn't see him on the floor either, so I checked the dock, conveniently getting in a smoke while I was out there. Nasty former habit. I checked the break room and got and drank a soda while I was there. Knocked on the men's room door. No answer. Oops, that soda just worked its way through me. Need to use the ladies now. I was about to check the parking lot to see if his car was even there. Oh, look, there's the postmaster, coming back from an off-site meeting. I take the time to bring him up to speed on the customer's complaint. This guy knew me and smiled. How long have you been keeping him waiting now? I think it's been 20 to 25 minutes. You can deal with him while I handle the paperwork. This will be fun. You're lucky I like you because you're a hard worker, though. The customer was absolutely livid when the door finally opened again. He demanded that I be fired right then and there, as if that's how it works in a union job. My boss, to his credit, chewed out the customer for being such a jerk to an injured employee who had actually done a great job in taking only 3 minutes to find 2 letters amongst hundreds in 2 separate locations. He even took one of the trays over to the ledge, slammed it down, and said, "See how long it would take you to go through this to find not 1, but 2 letters, and then tell me 3 minutes is too long." Lesson to be learned. Union workers don't have to take crap off of dirtbags, and we won't. So spare yourself a whole lot of grief and chill out. It's only mail for crying out loud. Am I the jerk for forcing my son to pay for his boyfriend's medical bills out of his college fund? My husband, against my wishes, decided to get our oldest, Brian, 16 male, a motorcycle for his 16th birthday a few months ago so that they could go riding together. It was a surprise last-minute gift that I didn't know about. They also apparently went and got his license for it behind my back. I couldn't just take it from him without looking like the bad guy since he already had it, so I laid down strict rules. He was supposed to only ever drive the speed limit, and he could only drive it with his dad around, and he was supposed to have no passengers on it. Me and my husband are separated right now, and he's staying in a nearby apartment until we figure out what we're doing with our marriage. Brian stays with me 1 week and stays with his dad the next week. Last Friday, while Brian was at his dad's, I get a call from the hospital saying him and his boyfriend, Clark, who's 15, had been in a motorcycle accident. I rush down to the hospital and find Brian, and he's kind of banged up, some cuts and bruises and a concussion. I asked him what happened, and he wouldn't look at me until he finally got up the nerve to tell me they crashed on his motorcycle while he was taking Clark home from baseball practice and decided to street race some other guy. He lost control of his bike and they flipped over. Now I was steaming and asked why he was out riding his motorcycle without his dad, and why would he do something so stupid, especially riding with someone else. He started crying, saying he was sorry and that he just wanted to know if Clark was okay. I went to check and found Clark's parents, who were upset, and they told me that Clark had broken a few ribs and his leg and 2 of his fingers. I promised to take care of the medical bills, which calmed them down some. My husband showed up and tried to explain and apologize for letting Brian ride around with his boyfriend, and I just went off on him in the middle of the hospital, yelling at him that this is the reason why we're separated and that he was an irresponsible parent who never took anything seriously. I went to talk to Brian, still mad, and told him that he'd be paying for all of Clark's medical bills out of his college fund and any money that he'd been saving. Since then, I've been getting calls from my husband and my in-laws about how I was being a jerk to my husband and that I shouldn't possibly be taking college away from Brian because of a mistake. Am I the jerk? I mean, he broke the rules and did a very stupid thing. He's lucky they're alive. Motorcycles aren't toys, they're very dangerous, more so than cars. He should consider himself lucky he's only losing some money out of this. Though frankly, I'd be getting dear old husband to pitch in too, since he went behind your back in the first place. Not the jerk. Agreed. Letting him skate would be telling him that he can move through life without having to take accountability for his actions. Actions have consequences. He needs to learn that. Your ex should, however, be held accountable to replenish the college fund because he gave that gift that caused the accident. Further, your ex should have consulted you before buying the motorcycle. Since your husband and in-laws are so upset, tell them to cough up the money for the bills and your kid will still have a college fund. Win-win, right? She's not taking college away from the kid, she's making him face consequences. Now he has to get scholarships, work a job, take out loans. He might have to struggle, and remember that because of his careless decisions, someone he loved was hurt, and he was forced to not have things as easy as he would have liked. This is the appropriate consequence, not the jerk. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for how she's handling this or not? Please let us know. Sounds to me like she's holding him accountable. Am I the jerk for having no sympathy for my kid after she didn't listen? My 10-year-old daughter wanted bangs for a long time because a friend of hers recently had her hair cut and had bangs cut, and it ended up being very cute. My daughter has beautiful hair. It's very long, but it's thin. I had my cousin, who's a hairdresser, who actually has an area of focus on kids' haircuts, consult, and she said that if we cut bangs into my daughter's hair, it wouldn't look right due to how thin her hair is. I normally let my daughter have a say in her choices she makes regarding clothes and hair, but on this one, I put my foot down because I know it won't look good and she's going to wind up unhappy. My cousin also used FaceApp to show me what she would look like with bangs, and it wasn't a good look. I know FaceApp isn't 100% accurate, but it was pretty close in this regard. Day before yesterday, my daughter told me she was going to take some alone time in our bathroom. It was only after she'd been in the bathroom a while that I noticed the scissors I keep in the kitchen were missing. These are big meat scissors. And then I heard her in the bathroom crying. So I made her open the door and she was hunkered down with her back to me, sobbing, and I saw a hunk of hair in the sink. She had watched a TikTok compilation of people cutting their hair and tried to do bangs. It was not good results. The hair doesn't lay flat, she cut very unevenly, and she cut too short. Using your index finger, place the tip in the center part and go down to the first bend, and that's how short she cut it. I really didn't know what to say, so I made sure she hadn't hurt herself, which she didn't. I looked at her hair, realized I wasn't going to be able to even it up myself, so I called my cousin who came over and made the cut even, but it required cutting shorter, and now her hair is messed up. My daughter is mortified and doesn't want to go into public now. She keeps begging me to fix it, even though I've explained to her, and my cousin explained it can't be fixed. So I told her, this is what happens when you don't listen. You made the mistake yourself. You hid in the bathroom because you knew it was wrong. You have to live with the consequences and wait for it to grow. My husband says I'm being very cold and unsympathetic and that our daughter is 10. She didn't know any better. She was just learning and doing what kids do. I feel that she knew exactly what she was doing and that it was wrong, hence her hiding it from me. My husband said that if I had just taken her to the salon and had her hair cut, then she wouldn't have done it herself. My daughter hates the bangs, says my cousin was right, that it wouldn't look good, so if I had taken her to get it done, then she'd be blaming me. We're at a stalemate. Am I the jerk? Edit. Why is everyone focusing on me when she asked my husband for bangs as well, and he said no? He told her he didn't think it would look good. He could have also easily taken her to the salon. I can pretty much guarantee that the majority of the people here calling you a jerk are not parents. 10 is old enough to face the consequences of your actions. She snuck into the bathroom. She knew she shouldn't be doing what she did. Not the jerk. Her hair will grow back. There are lots of stupid things kids do that cannot be fixed. Disagree. I'm a parent. My kids are now grown. OP is a jerk for putting her foot down about bangs in the first place. Kids should have agency in their appearance as much as possible. They were bangs. So what if OP thought they would look bad? Her daughter is old enough to try new styles and decide for herself if she likes them or not. OP should have okayed the bangs from the get-go and given her kid the chance to do them properly or to speak with a professional herself and make her own decisions about her hairstyle. If everyone, including a professional, is telling her that bangs won't work for her, she should not, at 10 years old, be deciding she knows better. If she does, and does it herself, the natural consequences are something she can live with and maybe listen to people who knew what they were talking about next time. Let's get some perspective here. This is a very low consequence scenario. Those are the kinds of decisions you start to allow kids to make. This is how they learn. OP should have given her daughter agency to do so, with full understanding that it's her own decision. Then you have a weird haircut, a few awkward photos, and laugh about it when you're 30. Spoken from a woman who sported a mushroom cut and a mullet proudly as a kid. Pick your battles as a parent. You're the jerk, gently. Just learn and laugh with her about it eventually. You're the jerk. Yeah, this is all your fault. Your kid should be allowed to make simple decisions for herself at this age, and bangs is an incredibly minor simple decision. Hair grows back. You should apologize to her for being overly controlling and telling her that next time she wants to do something new with her hair, you won't stand in the way. If you'd let her get the bangs and she didn't like them, you could console her and help her be patient while they grow back. Instead, you have this ridiculous mess. Not the jerk. None of you know the first thing about raising kids. Mine always did stupid things, and it wasn't my fault. I didn't raise you to be an idiot. They all got that from their dads somehow, even though they never met them. I can't stand when people try to hold parents accountable for the stupid things our kids do. It ain't my fault he's throwing rocks at your windows. What am I supposed to do? I called the police on my own kids plenty of times, and you know what happened as a result? They took my babies away. All 4 of them are now in foster homes, and court orders prevent me from seeing any of them. It is a plus in that now my boyfriend doesn't complain about them constantly, but sometimes I do miss them, even if they were little monsters. Lord willing, I'll be having twins soon with my current boyfriend, and this time we won't be losing them to the state. These kids will actually be worth a darn, unlike the others. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for how she handled this, or not? Please let us know. Something tells me Reddit might not be the best place to look for parenting advice. Am I the jerk for evicting my roommate after buying the condo we rented together? I live in a small condo, around 600 square feet, with a roommate, Caitlin. We didn't know each other before moving in. She rents the bigger room and I rent the smaller one. Our landlord told us she wants to sell the condo, and I jumped in on the opportunity to buy it. She sold it to me almost 15% below market price, so it's great. I already gave her the deposit, and we will sign the papers in a few days. Then the condo will be mine 3 months from now. After me giving our landlord the deposit, Caitlin was ecstatic. She brought a champagne to celebrate, told me I'm the best, and she will save so much money from now on by not having to pay rent. I don't know where she got this from, and I thought our landlord already told her how long she has until she has to move out, but it seems not. I told Caitlin that it's a small condo, and I don't need a roommate anymore. She will have to move out in 3 months, but I'd be glad to help her look for a new place. She flipped out. She asked me if I seriously want to evict her and throw her out on the street. She said she thought we were friends, and if she had the money to buy the place, she would let me stay for free because that's what decent people do. Then she switched and started bargaining with me that I can have the bigger room and she will stay in the small room. She won't bother much and so on. I feel a bit guilty. I really thought it was given that she will have to move out. Maybe I should have told Caitlin before giving the deposit to our landlord. I feel sorry for her. I know she doesn't make a lot of money, but at 26, I don't want to live in a small room anymore, especially if I own the condo. Am I the jerk? Edit. Our landlord told us that she will put the condo on the market in a few weeks, but we don't have to worry. She will tell the new owner that she won't give over the keys right away, so we have enough time to look for a new place. We are a month to month. I didn't think Caitlin would think she didn't have to move out anymore just because I'm the one who bought the condo. As for the legal issues, where we live, there's no such thing as a lease continuing with the new owner. I can't evict Caitlin because I'm not the one she has a contract with. Her lease is with the current landlord, and the landlord has to give Caitlin a written notification, which seems like she hasn't done yet. Edit 2. I'm still buying the condo. In my first edit, I explained what our landlord told us 2 weeks ago. She first announced that she will sell soon and we will need to move out. Then I talked to her and eventually made an offer. She immediately assumed she wouldn't have to pay rent? Why? To me, this would have been a conversation of if I would be paying rent to you or if I should start looking for a new place. You gave her ample time to find a new place and offered to help look. Not the jerk. That's the part I don't understand either. Pretty entitled for someone to assume that they don't have to pay rent somewhere. OP is not the jerk at all. I'm disturbed that Caitlin's first thought was that she would live rent-free. That is incredibly entitled. Did she think you got it for free? If you want to do a nice gesture, you could help her look for a place or help her pay for movers, etc., depending on the severity of her financial situation. But you are not entitled to keep her as a roommate, nor should you feel an ounce of regret for doing what is right for you. Congratulations on your new place. Not the jerk. Am I the jerk for asking my wife to help pay for private school despite separate finances? I've been married to Stella for 7 years now. Together, we have 5 kids. Daughters from my previous relationship, Kira, who's 11, and May, 7, a son and daughter from Stella, Brianna, who's 13, and Jaden, who's 8, and a son together, Lucas. My 2 are 50-50 custody, while my stepkids only see their biological father every second weekend. My wife and I agreed to split finances and have mostly kept separate aside from a joint account for essentials, bills, groceries, house, etc. We both used to be high earners, though had terrible hours. When our parental leave for Lucas was finishing, our kids begged us to not go back to work, that they hated the before and after school care and wanted us. In the end, my wife went back, but I quit and got a new job. It was much lower pay, but essentially school hours, so I was able to be there for our kids. Stella has been paying more of our joint expenses, but otherwise it's been fine. I wouldn't say the split has been firm though. I do buy stuff for my stepkids or pay when I take them all out. It's more the big payments that are separate. Brianna goes to a private high school. I was talking about high schools to my sister, since Kira is year 6, and realized that on my current pay, I won't be able to afford her with her sister. My ex is barely willing to pay the costs related to public school, let alone a private one. The school is so much better than the nearby public school, and I know Kira wants to go to her sister's school, so I tried to talk to Stella and asked if she would be willing to help. It's education, and she's close with my daughters, so it's not like I'm asking her to pay for something crazy. Stella refused, and I would have accepted it even though I was annoyed. But she went on saying that I knew we were split finances and I made my choice when I took the lower paying job. That I got more time for less money, so I can't complain that I'm paid less. I got pretty upset about that. I didn't stay home for fun. It was for our family, our kids. I loved my job, but I had to sacrifice it for them. It was worth it, of course, but still. Stella basically said that it was my decision, so tough luck, that she's not going to finance me. I got angry with that and told her that she knew the consequences of her job, so she can deal with her kids then. Her money won't be used on mine, so I won't use my extra time on hers. They can stay in care until our old hours. Stella got upset, accusing me of using her for money and calling me a complete jerk for suggesting what I did for my stepkids. We argued pretty bad. She thinks I'm being greedy, selfish, and petty, but it's not like I'm asking to mooch. I would still foot 50% and get my ex to contribute as much as I can get her to. Yes, it was my choice, but it was all for the kids, for our family. Besides, I literally take care of my stepkids more than my own, 85% of the time versus 50% of the time. I'm not just being lazy or focusing on my own kids, I've been there for them all. So I think it's frankly unfair for her to refuse to help even a little. But obviously, she thinks I'm being a jerk. Everyone sucks here, but you more. Like heavily leaning towards you're the jerk. You needed to discuss this when you decided to cut your hours. It doesn't sound like the decision was in any way a mutual one made between you and your wife, but all you. Despite that, your wife has been willing to pay more of your shared expenses, which at least somewhat compensates for the extra childcare you're doing. For some reason, you waited until your kid was about to start high school to even think about where she'd go and how you'd afford it. You sprung on your wife that despite your prior agreement being different, you want her to pay tens of thousands in tuition she wasn't planning on. Also, no kid needs to go to a private high school. Your daughter will be fine at a public school. I also assume you are not paying any of Brianna's tuition, so she's going to have to pay full tuition for her kids and half for yours. That's a ton of money. I don't know exactly what she makes, but she'd have to be incredibly wealthy for that to be chump change. Your wife also should have been more proactive about thinking through how all of this would play out. You should have made a thorough and explicit agreement when you quit your job. This marriage sounds done for, honestly. You're the jerk. It is yours and your ex-wife's responsibility to take care of your kids' educations, just as it is your wife and her ex-husband's responsibility to take care of theirs. You aren't contributing anything to your stepkids' educations. If your wife is paying for most of the bills, it's fair that your contribution to the family be in the way of more childcare. I've been a stay-at-home mom for 10 years. I do most housework, cooking, cleaning, as my husband is at work all day. My kids are teenagers, so they don't need much tending anymore, But when they were younger, I did more because I was home more. It's a low blow to deal to your wife that you won't take care of her kids if she doesn't pay for your kids' education. If she wanted to play tit for tat, she could refuse to pay more than 50% of the bills and force you to get a higher paying job or even a second job. If you want your kids to go to a private high school, hit up your ex to pony up the money. So his time spent looking after her kids means nothing? Isn't it up to her and her ex to provide childcare? If she is willing to take advantage of his lower paid job for her gain, as she isn't having to pay for wraparound childcare, isn't he entitled to some compensation for that? No, because she is now paying more of the household bills than he is. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Some of these stories make me feel like my life is just so simple. Maybe that's why I like listening to them so much. Every single time that I walk into Home Depot, legitimately, every single time I set foot in Home Depot, someone will start asking me where things are. I wear a uniform for my job, black cargo type work jeans, and a gray short sleeve button up shirt that's tucked in with a large, very recognizable local company logo. Let's just say that everyone knows the company I work for. If you so much as glance at the logo, you know who I work for. It's that type of recognizable and looks nothing like the orange smock with the Home Depot written across the front of it. Usually I'll just smile and say, "Sorry, I don't work here," and that's the end of it. Well, Karen didn't like my whole bit about not working there because I looked like someone that worked there, and she wanted S-hooks and wanted them now. She has planners that must be hung today, and she wants the hooks immediately. Me: "Oh, you need them immediately, do you? Well, I get mine from Lowe's." Karen: "What is that supposed to mean? Are you telling me to go to a different store?" Me: "I would. The S-clips here suck." Karen: "You must not like your job too much. I bet your manager will love to hear this." Me: "Okay, I'm pretty sure he's on another site, but I can give you his number and you can give him a call." "Darn right, I'll call him." Here's where it gets interesting as she proceeds to aggressively dial the number. See, I've told my boss about this happening to me, and he doesn't believe me. He's about to learn. Boss: "Hello, this is so-and-so with major corporation that is not Home Depot. How can I help you?" Karen: "Yes, hello. I would like to speak to you about… What is your name?" Me: "Rudiger Simpson, ma'am." "Rudiger just told me to go to a different store to purchase my products." Boss: "Yup, Rudiger definitely knows where to get his stuff." "Well, I just asked him where S-hooks are, and he told me to go to Lowe's." Boss: "Well, if he said Lowe's, then Lowe's is probably the best bet." "I don't want to go to Lowe's. How can you allow your staff to send people to the competition?" Boss: "Competition? We don't have any competition. Who is this and why are you calling me?" "Your employee is rude and would not help me find what I'm looking for." Boss: "Is he…" Boss describes me to a T. Karen: "That's him. I guess you've had trouble with him before." Boss: "Nope. Are you at Home Depot? Did he say something about not working there?" "Multiple times. I know he works here. I saw him helping someone else. He just doesn't want to help me." Boss: "Goodness, is this what is happening here? He told me that people keep doing this to him, and I thought he was full of crap. He does not work for Home Depot. Tell," uses my real name, "to stop messing with people. Purchase what he's there to purchase and get to his next job site. I'm not paying him to hang out in a hardware store dealing with morons." Karen: "Did you just call me a moron? Because I want someone to do their job?" Yes, I called you a moron because… He then launches into a tirade about orange smocks and how I don't work there. Something about wasting time, yada yada. Karen: "You are also extremely rude, and I want to speak to your manager." Boss: "Wow, okay. I can absolutely guarantee that you do not want to waste his time with this, but here is his number. Feel free to explain it to him. I can hardly wait to see what his reaction is going to be. But until then, my employee is going to need to finish his shopping and get back to work, if that is okay with you. I would suggest either going to Lowe's, where he said you could find your clips, or find a Home Depot employee." Then he hung up. Me: phone rings. It's the super, so I put it on speaker. "Hey, what's up?" Boss: "Holy cow, I just got a call from some nut that thinks you work at Home Depot." "You weren't kidding. I gave her Big Boss's number. He's going to laugh his butt off when she calls. She literally will not hear that you don't work there." Me. I know. She's still here and still expecting something. I'll deal with this and call you back. I just wanted you to hear it from her own mouth before the inevitable complaint comes in. Karen. This is unacceptable. I'm going to call the corporate office and tell them all about this situation. Me. Okay, I can make it super easy with a direct line. Here is the 3-digit number needed to call and make a complaint, or you can go on the website. But that's the major corporation's contact number. Me. I know, because that is who I work for, not Home Depot. But you said you worked here, and I need help. Goodness, lady. Okay, you got me. They are in aisle 4. I then turned my back and walked away to get my stuff. I'm walking towards the cash when I see Karen, and who I'm guessing is the store manager. As soon as she sees me, she starts pointing and saying, "That's him. That's the employee that told me to go to Lowe's." Manager. He obviously doesn't work here. Our employees wear orange smogs with Home Depot on them. He is wearing Major Corporation's logo on his shirt and has a security badge on his waist. What makes you think he works here? He's shopping. Karen. He told me. Manager looks at me confused. I shrug my shoulders and proceed to walk past them to the register to purchase my stuff. Well, are you going to say something? Manager. To who and what about? To your employee who is trying to leave. Manager. Has a very concerned look on his face now. Are you here alone, or do you have a companion that you're supposed to be with? Do you need me to call someone for help? Do you usually get confused like this? You could hear the concern in this poor guy's voice. Karen. How dare you? Something. She was still yelling and demanding that I do not leave the store as I was walking to my van. I wonder how far that actually went after I left. Edit. Reread the bit about the manager and what he said about the lady needing help. He said that. I don't know why he said that, but it was funny as heck, meaning that you don't need to go on and on about the mental health of the country. Either laugh and move on, or just move on. My aunt told my son that we're replacing him, so I embarrassed her and kicked her out of my house. I, male 26, married my wife, female 26, 6 years ago. After 2 years, we tried for kids, but couldn't because of health problems my wife had. After a year of trying and going to different doctors, we decided to adopt. After another year of paperwork and court hearings, we finally had our then 5-year-old son, and he was a blessing. We love him with all of our hearts, and he loves us. He immediately started calling us mom and dad. That really made us feel like we were his parents. Now, fast forward 2 years later, my wife unexpectedly got pregnant. We don't know how it happened, we just thanked God and were overjoyed. I cried and held her for half an hour when she told me. Our now 7-year-old son was also really excited. We threw a small party for just family members and close friends. Everything was going well. Our son was playing with his cousins. After a while, I looked for him because he hadn't eaten his dinner yet. I asked my nephews where he was, and they didn't know. I asked my wife to look for him. I wasn't worried or anything. It would just be easier if both of us looked. We found him in his closet crying. We got him out and asked him what was wrong. He kept crying and saying he didn't want us to get angry with him. I told him we could never get angry at him, and he could tell us anything. Now this next part is where I got red hot. This is somewhat how it went. Me. Buddy, what happened? Did somebody say something? You can tell us. Wife. Baby, look at me. What's wrong? Then he hit us with the most heart-wrenching question. I felt like crying right then and there. My son. Are you going to stop loving me and throw me out when you get your real baby? Edit. The part that hit us the most was the real. After all the love we gave him, he started doubting if he was our son. We were shocked. My wife immediately hugged him, saying no. We told him that even after the new baby comes, we would never stop loving him, and that he's our son no matter what. We just kept repeating that we loved him. He started crying more and hugged us both. After he calmed down a little, we asked him who told him that. He said his aunt. I was fuming. We told him to stay in the room. We went to the living room, and there she was, gossiping, living her best life. Not for long, though. I just let loose in front of everyone. I went to her and yelled, "Why would you tell our son we would throw him out and not love him anymore after the baby comes?" There was a look of horror on her face. My mother-in-law comes and asks what's wrong, and when we told her what had happened, she, my aunt, started crying, saying she didn't mean it that way, and we were obviously going to love our own blood more. That was the last straw for my wife, and she went off. saying that she has no right to tell us who we are supposed to love more and we would love both of them equally. Aunt started saying she was sorry and she didn't know our son would make such a big deal out of it. I was sick of her crap and I just told her to get out. My father-in-law and mother-in-law agree with what I did, but some family members are calling us saying we should have just talked to her in private. As angry as I was, I feel really bad now. Edit 2. Thank you for all the kind responses. I felt bad because she was bawling her eyes out when she left, and to have done that to someone the same age as my mom didn't feel right to me. But after a long talk with my wife, whose exact words were, "Nobody talks to my son like that and gets away with it," and reading all the responses, I feel justified in how we handled it. There's a family WhatsApp group on my wife's side, with the aunt and a lot of the relatives who said we should have talked to her in private. We messaged in the group this morning saying that we don't regret what we did, and Aunt should have known better than to tell a 7-year-old such a cruel thing. Aunt wanted to apologize to my son in person, but we refused. He doesn't seem to remember what happened, but someone responded that he might, and after seeing how much pain he was in, we don't want to bring up the topic to him again. Keeping me up at night with your parties? Enjoy being shamed on the national news. In September of 2020, the apartment next to mine was rented out to 2 younger women. Both were students. After they settled in a bit, it turned out they wanted to have a party. No big deal, except Belgium was in full lockdown at this point due to lockdown, and you were supposed to only have one fixed visitor over. But then again, to be young again, etc. So I didn't really care. During this time, I was working in healthcare. I work with the mentally disabled, but I volunteered for the ad hoc lockdown team, meaning I got called upon to tend to those residents who were sick and needed quarantining, or were effectively diagnosed. This meant pretty long working hours, and I spent about 10 to 11 hours a day at work, with a full hour bike ride to and from work. Needless to say, I was pretty tired pretty much all of the time. So I wasn't looking forward to the noise from a party, but I'm pretty chill and know that living in the city, some noise is to be expected. So they're having their party, and I can stand some noise and music, but this party was wild. People shouting full on in the hallway, wrecking things, etc. At about 4 in the morning, I introduced myself to the neighbors and asked them when could they expect their company, plus 20 people, to leave, and if they could refrain from having a party the next day as I have to work and get up at 6 every day. So they promised they would keep it down the rest of the night. They didn't, and that they wouldn't have a party the next day. Plot twist, they did have another party, and then they did another one the day after. At this point, I had been going a full 3 nights without sleep and was nearing neurosis. Every night I had talked to the girls, and every night they would be full of apologies and stuff, but nothing would change. I also felt terrible when I had to enter their place because it would be absolutely packed with people, and I work with some pretty vulnerable people at work who I wouldn't want to get sick. Luckily, the weekend came and they went to their parents and I could recover a bit. Suffice to say, I wasn't really liking my new neighbors. During the next few weeks, they refrained from big parties, but they would have a constant flood of people coming over during the night. And by constant, I mean constant. Like their bell would ring 70 times a night, and people would always be coming or going, and those people would be drunk and loud. Our communal hallway is pretty much an echo chamber because it's all stone, and any noise will travel throughout the building. Basically, I couldn't rely to sleep that night. It drove me crazy. I could only sleep Friday through Sunday because then they would go off to their parents or whatever. I couldn't grasp how they could know this many people that would always be coming and going. During one night, while knocking on their door to complain about the noise, I encountered my upstairs neighbor, who's also on Reddit, hi, and decided that we would have to join forces to get this to stop. My neighbor told me some important bit of information. The reason there were people coming and going all the time was because they used their apartment as a makeshift bar and hangout. During this time, bars were closed due to lockdown, and all those students were using this big apartment to hang out. Moreover, across the street was another frat house with 5 boys living there, and that too was a secret hangout. So people would hang out at those 2 places and cross the street if they wanted a different atmosphere or wanted to see their other friends, etc. And the boys from across the street would also come over 15 times a night. Most visitors seemed to be law students or affiliated with them. Basically, our communal hallway was just a part of their cafe space now. So we tried talking to the girls. Then we started to talk to the visitors. None of them had any sympathy for us when we were asking them to be quiet at 4 in the morning. Most of them just laughed at us as we were the pesky neighbors, no doubt. Even more of them were just so wasted that they didn't know what they were doing. So we started calling the police dozens of times. Most of the time, they weren't let in, and police told us they couldn't do anything. We kept calling as we wanted a record of our calls in the system. Belgium was still in full lockdown at this point, and what they were doing was full-on illegal. Even so, police told us their hands were tied if they wouldn't open the door. When the police couldn't help, I turned to the next best thing. I'm a social worker, and so I have no problems looking up information and calling around to look for help. This is what I did. Most places, student unions, police, town hall, were understanding but couldn't really do much. So I acted on the suggestion of the upstairs neighbor and contacted one of their deans. I shot him a nice email about sorry to have bothered him and taking up his time, but I had this big group of students from his faculty ganging up every night, and maybe he wanted to know about it since they were breaking every possible lockdown rule that existed at that time. Especially since me and my neighbor were about to go to the papers with this story, as secret lockdown parties were becoming a thing in the papers at this point. This dean called me back right away, and we had a nice talk about our problems. He told me he was on it. So basically what he did was call the law student girl and her parents. Big drama ensued, and we finally got to sit down with the girls, and they finally sounded like they were sorry. Tears were shed, for which I had no patience, to be honest. We learned that the police had actually been inside a few times, and they were issued tickets for having secret parties. Those were 300 euros each a pop, so no idea why they didn't just stop. We learned that they were not happy because the dean had called them up at 11 o'clock and they were still asleep. To which I said, well, that's your problem. You were still asleep at 11 o'clock. I'm up at 6 every day, and you girls haven't been a bit understanding about that. So we got to feel a bit like we got our revenge and we got to vent, but we kept it kinda nice and parted in good terms, hoping that this would have been it and we could live together as nice neighbors. But if that were the case, I wouldn't be here, right? You'd think they would have gotten the point now and would refrain from making noise and partying. Well, you'd be wrong. Basically what they did was they moved to the frat house across the street and started partying there. There were slightly less people running to and fro, but the noise was still a problem, and we were now in the middle of the second lockdown wave, and these people were meeting up with big groups like crazy, while I hadn't seen a soul in almost a year. Never mind the people at my work, who were forbidden from even going to their own family. This whole thing was just ridiculous. My upstairs neighbors happened to film such a party across the street and had sent the clip to me. We were thinking about going to the press with our story, but weren't really sure if it would be a good idea. So I posted the clip of the party on the subreddit of our country to test the waters. It got quite the comments and upvotes, and it seemed most people were also sick of people disregarding the rules and having secret parties. After some talks with the upstairs neighbor, we decided to contact the press and simultaneously go up a step in the university hierarchy and contact the vice rector that had the power to start up a disciplinary case against the students. This person is one of the 12 vice rectors for a total campus of about 15,000 students, so quite high up. Things moved fast. Local news actually picked up our story from Reddit and contacted me, and we gave some background info. They confirmed with the police that cops had been dozens of times to our address and across the street and weren't let in most of the time. We mentioned that the university was involved and that we hoped they would finally intervene. The next day, the piece was up on their website. It went viral there and got promoted to the sites of most national newspapers. Its headline was sensational enough, mentioning the dozens of times police had shown up and also mentioning how healthcare workers were being kept up by selfish students. At the same time, the vice rector contacted us to take our statements, which we already had prepared up on paper, and informed us that they would investigate and could possibly start up disciplinary actions. At the same time, more reporters were contacting me through the day, and we made sure to mention that to her and link the university the printed articles. The next day while at work, I got a message from the upstairs neighbor that a film crew from the national news was at our doorstep. He declined to talk to them, and I would have done the same since this was getting pretty big now, but they made a segment anyway. And sure enough, that night at 7, here was my street, and a short section about cops standing in front of a closed door a dozen times and the local press cop talking about the troubles of closed doors. Best part about it was that a student from the offending frat house across the street had let the film crew in and said on camera exactly what we were accusing them of towards the university. That they had been having parties and didn't let the cops in, and that they had done it multiple times. No idea what made him think that was a good idea. Anyway, trying not to make a huge story even longer, the press died down sometime later, thank God, and the disciplinary action from the uni went through. Before the hearing, we sat down with the girls from our block and cleared some things up. We wanted to live like normal people together, and we tried to make some amends. Because we put in a kind of good word for them, they got the lighter end of the stick. 40 hours of community service and some probation. The guys across the street got 80 hours each, and each had to write us a letter of apology, which I thoroughly enjoyed reading every time I got one. Sad part is, most of them sounded just like dumb young kids, but that was after getting called out on the news and being part of a disciplinary action. But we never wanted to escalate things this far. Some noise is to be expected when living in the same building, and we were never going to go to these extremes for some expected noises. But these people went to the extremes, and so we were forced to do the same. Rest of the year, a simple message on WhatsApp was enough to silence any noises we had coming from their apartment. If anything, I hope they learned that even very polite and chill people can become very upset when presented with sleep deprivation and excessive noise. Am I the jerk for not following the school supply standards for my kids? I, 35 male, have 2 kids who are 9 and 5. My littlest one is going into kindergarten, and I was so excited to properly include him in our school shopping routine. He's always tagged along with his brother and gotten his own arts and crafts stuff to use at home, of course, but there's a new layer of excitement this year. We always allow independence and choices as long as it doesn't become inconvenient. For example, if my kid picks out the 120 count crayons, we might redirect him to the 96 count instead, since that's easier to carry around in his backpack. Other than practicality, we don't try to persuade them in any way. It's always a fun experience and a great way to kick off the school year, and to relieve some of those, "oh no, my baby is leaving me," fears for my husband and I with our 5-year-old. We usually grab quite a few of the items on the teacher's wish lists as well, and make a point to wrap it up nicely as a little thank you present from our kids to the educator that will be spending the year with them. This year, upon receiving the school supplies list, there's a note made at the top that all supplies should be exactly as listed on the sheet, such as a 24-pack of crayons, as all items will be shared with every student in the class. This was confusing for me, as I buy the items specifically for my kid. I decided I was going to go through with our supply shopping tradition as normal, never getting anything less than what was required, of course, and send a note with both of my boys that their items would be their own and could be kept in their backpacks as usual. When I expressed this sentiment to those around me, aside from my husband who was on my side, they weren't very receptive to the idea. Am I the jerk for not following the rules listed? Edit. I am 100% open and now intend to buy extra school supplies to send with each of my kids for those whose families can't afford to purchase them. My kiddos also love to share, and I'm sure they would love to pass around some colors from their boxes of crayons or let someone borrow their scissors when the time came. We also respect teachers and don't expect them to provide supplies for every student. Just wanted to clear these things up. You're the jerk for the reasons others have mentioned. 14 years in the public schools. You don't want to start the year by being that parent. You just don't. Most classrooms I was in, extra items were simply sent home or not used. May I suggest that you could set up a homework station at home with some of the off-list items that your kiddos would like? Seriously, don't be that parent. It won't help you or your kid. What happens to parents that are that parent? Do you treat the kid different? People keep saying this, and I'm trying to figure out what is being implied, not trying to be rude. It's a first impression thing. If your first interaction with that teacher is you being all me, that teacher is going to dread dealing with you. They won't treat your kid poorly, but they'll internally roll their eyes every time they have to interact with you. I teach high school, so only wish parents would provide some supplies, Kleenex and hand sanitizer specifically. Want to know why? Parents found out everything is redistributed after the first year, and now buys cheaper stuff to send in. I understand the intentions behind this and why you would ask parents to send in extra if they could, but to take away something specifically picked out and purchased for your kid just doesn't sit well with a lot of parents. For example, I got my nephew a Spider-Man pencil and eraser set for his birthday a couple years ago. Among other kids, he's obsessed with the multiverse movie and couldn't wait to show his friends. Come to find out, both were redistributed, and he was given Paw Patrol, which he didn't watch. Why wasn't the pack of mechanical and number 2 pencils his mother donated enough? Not only that, but now he gets to watch someone else enjoy the set he likes while he was given the baby show pencils. Schools seem to promote expression when it comes to certain things, but not others in my opinion. Now he just takes the generic stuff to school and uses the cooler stuff for homework. All these practices do is lower the quality of materials used in class, so they break more often or are crap to begin with. I always had an issue with the redistributed. I bought quality products, but my kids came back with dollar store flimsy folders, etc. So yes, I was that parent and labeled their stuff, but sent extra unlabeled. This is why our 3 kids go to a private school. Among their numerous cousins, my kids are the only ones not on countless meds, dealing with depressions and anxiety, and walking around with clownish hair colors. Call me crazy, but maybe there's a correlation between being taught actual values and our kids being mentally healthy as a result. Of course, my kids also have great parents here at home that actually care about them. You know why? Because I waited until I found the right man that I knew would provide for his family no matter what, which is why we started one together. Advice to all parents who want their kids to be mentally sound. Do not send them to our failed public school system. Don't try homeschooling either, as our kids do need to interact with others. Edit. You can insult me as much as you want. At the end of the day, my kids are healthy and happy. Believe it or not, as long as my family is okay, your insults hold no power over me. I'd rather be doing laundry or cooking dinner for us any day than to be spending all hours of the night on websites complaining about what a victim I am. Edit 2. I'm 41, so definitely not a baby boomer. Just a happily married woman with a beautiful family that God has blessed me with. The anger and bitterness I'm seeing here is why I prefer to stay off the internet for the most part. I will pray that your troubled souls find peace. Kumbaya, my lord, kumbaya. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the teacher? Please let us know. Back in my day, it was so rough. You were responsible for your own school supplies. Owner of a restaurant wanted me to spy and tell them what was wrong with the restaurant, so I did. I've never been a manager before, but I have my bachelor's degree in management. I just started at a new restaurant. I've come from several corporate companies, but this place was a second store of a mom and pop company. I've always been a server, but I was hired as a bartender, important for later. In the interview, the 2 owners tell me that they're looking to make the place more professional and turn some things around. Get hired on the spot to come in the next day. I come in, no one knows anything. I'm not on the schedule, my trainer is late, there isn't a manager, and the owners are nowhere to be found. When I actually start working, I'm just thrown in, expected to make drinks, take orders, know the kitchen, everything. No biggie. I jump in and do what I gotta do. Some highlights. The staff are drinking alcoholic drinks on the job, not measuring the ingredients, giving out free drinks, not checking IDs, and close the restaurant 2 hours early, etc. The next day, the only server scheduled for dinner is running late. The morning server asks me to fill in until he gets there, so I end up just covering the entire floor, about 10 tables, by myself on my second day in training. The owners tell me, over the phone, how awesome I am for jumping in and covering this, and I'm exactly what they need to fix the restaurant. On day 3, they call me into the office to check in and see how everything is going. I tell them that I'm confused and I need recipes for the drinks, since only one bartender knows any recipes. They ask me what I've noticed is wrong, and I tell them what the other bartenders are doing that's not supposed to happen. I tell them honestly about the lack of controls, the lack of recipe cards, and the closing early. They blame it all on the bartenders and thank me. Tell me that I need to keep an eye out and stay in touch with what's going wrong in the bar. Cue malicious compliance. I tell them straight up that the problem is the lack of management, that if they want recipe cards, training procedures, or drink standards, that they either need to do it themselves or pay a bartender manager wages to do it. That it isn't the bartender's fault that these things are wrong, and they need to step up. After a long, unproductive, unprofessional conversation, the owner told me to get out of his restaurant right now and never come back. So I did, and I took the other 2 bartenders on shift with me, leaving them with no one in the restaurant to serve. They wanted to tell me that I'm too ignorant about running a restaurant, but they get to figure out how to run their own restaurant now. ETA. This place charges $24 for a chicken Alfredo and $14 for a margarita with well tequila. I saw so many $200 tickets. Not a cheap place. Why wasn't I at my desk? I'll tell you why. About 15 years ago, I worked in a large hospital for kids in the maintenance department. Our manager, let's call her Karen, was a major jerk. No one on our team liked her, and we outwardly showed no respect for her after her constant harassment towards us in the 2 years she worked there. She would call us on the maintenance radios and be rude, or tell the guys they were being incompetent. It was beyond micromanagement, but also rude on top of it. She expected the maintenance guys to come do work on her house for free, or would tell some of the hospital vendors she would guarantee the hospital contract if they did work at her house for cheap. She used to brag about this to me. Karen and I were the only women in our department of about 25 people. I was a mouthy 20-something-year-old and didn't care for her attitude and regularly would say, "Yeah, sure, whatever," when she asked me to do things. I would do what she asked because it was my job, but I would have made a non-committal remark like that. One time, she asked me to come to her house and help her pull down dead trees in her backyard since she was having a pool installed. I said no, mainly because I wouldn't do it for someone I liked, let alone her, and pretty soon after, she started treating me even worse than she did before. She had been trying to get me in trouble since then, such as CCing her buddy in HR on emails to me asking for status on projects that I was working on and wanted my replies in writing. Fast forward 6 months later, me and one of the maintenance guys were chatting in the office and I was 5 months pregnant with my first baby. She asked me to do something. I don't remember what, and I said, "Yeah, whatever, sure, I'll do that in a few minutes." And I turned back around to talk to my coworker. She's standing behind me and I can hear her whisper, "I wish I could smack you." I can see my coworker saw her say it too, and I made no comment, but I was shocked. I acted like I didn't hear her though. She left the office a minute later to do something. I get up and walk down the hall to employee health department because I'm fuming and my heart was racing, also 5 months pregnant. The employee health nurse has me lay down for a bit, take my vitals, write up a formal report. An hour later, send me back to my desk as okay to continue working. When I log back in, I see an email from Karen with HR CC'd asking where I had been for the last hour as she called the office phone a bunch of times and had abandoned my desk. So I emailed her back. "I apologize for being away from my desk. When you said you'd like to smack me, I was so upset I had to be calmed down and have mine and my baby's vitals checked at employee health, and they were concerned about my hostile working environment and wanted me to stay there for the full hour. I made sure I BCC'd her buddy in HR and all of HR, her boss and his boss to make sure everyone saw it." I was summoned to HR about 30 minutes later. I knew Karen hadn't seen my reply yet. This was early 2000s and her computer was down in the office near me. They had me go home for the day and put me on admin leave for 3 extra days. I came back to the office to see her desk had been emptied out and we never saw her again. Those guys in maintenance threw me the best baby shower ever 3 months later. Returning a massively nearly empty box to Amazon. I ordered 2 items a few weeks ago, a drafting table and a small $32 plastic shelf bracket from Amazon. And for some illogical reason, they put the 2 items together in a box that could have fit 2 drafting tables, but ended up being 75% empty and almost 4 feet by 3 feet by 1.5 feet. Of course, the plastic shelf was destroyed when I opened it from being bashed around in the empty box against the table. I'm in Canada, and shipping here is expensive due to so few people and such a large expanse of land to traverse. Our national post office has very high prices to ship. When I filed my refund claim at Amazon, I was surprised that they asked for the item to be returned because it was shattered and really small and could fit in my hand. But they provided a return shipping label for Canada Post, which I was to print and affix to the box. I don't have a printer. The closest post office is a 40-minute walk, and I injured my arm a couple of weeks ago doing a YouTube push-up challenge. Teachable moment. Don't do 100 wide arm push-ups every day for 2 weeks with a TRX. You will destroy your rotator cuffs and need physiotherapy. So I can't carry anything right now, which is why I had ordered from Amazon in the first place. Now, the logical thing to do in this situation would be to take a smaller box that I could easily handle with a backpack and return the small, lightweight item in the smaller box. Forget that noise. I waited as long as I could for my arms to get better, but nearing the last day to return the item, today I went to the library to print the return slip and I spent 20 minutes rigging up a system to string rope through the box so that I could tie it to my body and still roll on my bike to the post office. Yes, it was awkward biking through the city with a box tied to me, and the wind nearly turned me into a sail bike a couple of times, but it was worth it. I shipped that massive box back to those clowns nearly empty because I knew it would cost at least $80 to mail something that size with Canada Post due to being based on dimensions, not weight. Now who's the smart one, Bezos? Yeah, seems like more of a pain for the postal workers and Amazon employees and subsidiary hourly employees who have to actually handle the return than something the CEO would notice. Alternatively, use that smaller box for the return and stop by a pre-K center and see if they'd like the giant box to make a boat or spaceship out of. As a pre-K teacher, my guess is yes, they would. Bezos isn't going to care, but the guy that just lost his bathroom break because he has to break down this oversized return box while keeping his return opening metrics up isn't going to be happy. Most Amazon sales are from a small business as seller with Amazon as fulfillment. When OP shipped back a huge empty box, he did over the small business, not Amazon. Why would you make life harder for every underpaid worker that has to handle it? Hint, not Bezos. And massively increase the environmental impact just to stick it to Amazon, which isn't even going to feel it. If you really wanted to make a statement, don't buy from there in the first place. I have to use Amazon at work, but personally, I've avoided using them more than once or twice in the last few years. Speaking of Amazon, what was the last thing you ordered on Amazon? Please let us know. Ours was a Ryobi circular saw. Karen feels entitled to my inheritance because she's a single mom. I, 25 male, don't think what I said is bad, but who knows, maybe I'm wrong here. My sister, 26 female, met her boyfriend D 2 years ago. He's also 26, and let me just say, dude is a loser. He has 5 kids with 2 other women that he doesn't see, and since we've known him, he's been between jobs. My parents don't like him because my stepdad loaned him close to $2,000 and he never got repaid. My sister, being the genius that she is, decided she wanted to have a baby with him while she was still going to college because he promised to take care of her. It wasn't like this was a surprise pregnancy. She made a choice to actually have a kid with this guy. Everyone in my family practically screamed no, but she went ahead and got pregnant. Now she's all surprised Pikachu face when he broke up with her a month after my nephew was born, and he tells her he doesn't have money to help with the baby. My nephew is a year old. My sister is living in a studio and working full-time, no school either. A few times, she asks my parents for money. Thanks to my mom, she heard that my biological father has passed. Guy was very wealthy, so each of my half-siblings got a large amount of money. I haven't touched any of it because I don't want to go crazy. So the plan was to get in touch with a financial advisor. Point is, I'm not using that money for crap, and my sister is upset with me because I'm refusing to give her anything to help. She's not my biological dad's daughter, by the way, so that's why she didn't get a cut. Last time we fought, she told me she's struggling here, and I'm being a crappy brother to not help her out. Then I reminded her that she made the bad choice to be a mom with a deadbeat who wasn't going to help her. We all told her she'd be stupid to have a kid right now while she was in school with no career, and especially with a guy like him. And it's not my fault she made this dumb decision. She goes on complaining to my parents about it. Now my mom is getting mad at me for telling her that, because it's not my place to say something about her choices. I don't see how it was wrong pointing out a fact when she was getting mad at me for not helping her, like it's my fault that she's a single mom now. So I guess telling her that made me the jerk. But am I? My wife doesn't want our son going to Disney World for his friend's birthday because our daughter wasn't invited. This all started back in March. My son's best friend turned 13. In his family, 13th birthday is a huge deal. In addition to a massive party, which all 4 of us were invited to, his parents also took him to Disney World. They invited my son to attend as well. My wife was hesitant to agree to this. She said it was unfair to allow our son to go when our 9-year-old daughter can't, especially since she loves Disney and princesses. I said that our kids won't always have the exact same opportunities, and if we set a precedent here, we'll have to stick to it, and when our daughter gets a similar opportunity. So we'd just be punishing both of our kids needlessly. My wife reluctantly agreed, and we allowed our son to go. I gave our son money to buy his sister souvenirs. He did, and his friend's parents even bought extra stuff for him to give to her. Still, when she saw him come back wearing a Star Wars shirt with the Mickey hat and trading pin lanyard, she burst into tears. My wife later said we made a huge mistake and never should have let him go. I, mistakenly, thought all of that was behind us. Now, we are not well off financially, but my brother-in-law is, and he invited all of us to visit a beach house he rented for a summer send-off. My wife told me she wants to have our son stay with my dad and just take our daughter to even the score. I told my wife that isn't happening. We are their parents. We can't favor one kid over the other. Not being invited to a birthday trip of a kid you barely know is in no way comparable to being left out of a family vacation, and I'm shocked she would even suggest such a thing. I refuse to allow it. Now my wife is angry, but I don't care. I'm not punishing my son for being lucky. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Your wife sounds like she has a clear favorite out of the two kids, and she isn't afraid to show it. Of course your son should go on vacation with you all. I'm shocked that she would want him to miss out. That's awful. Is she always this unkind to him? I'm not sure it's necessarily a favorite thing. I think OP's wife has good intentions. They're just misdirected and immature. But in her mind, she's making things fair. I think you're being more charitable than she deserves. I've reread the original post 3 times to see if I'm being unfair, but what comes across each time is that all that seems to matter to OP's wife is how the daughter feels, even though I doubt the daughter would, unprompted, want her brother to be excluded from the family holiday or think that this would be an appropriate way to handle things. Can only say that I hope you're right and I'm wrong. Not the jerk, but your wife? When your daughter doesn't make varsity volleyball, will you pull your son from varsity baseball and punish him for making varsity the previous year too? How about when your son gets a partner, but your daughter doesn't? Oh, how about when your son has kids and your daughter doesn't? What will your wife do then? When your son gets into a college that the daughter didn't and is pressured to forego his education and future? Not the jerk, you are 100% correct that your kids aren't going to receive the same opportunities in life. Daughter has to learn how to handle situations like this in life because she's not always going to be treated the same or have the same opportunities as everyone around her, and she needs to learn to handle that with grace. Also, this is your family inviting you, like you said, not a kid's friend. Your wife would be excluding your son from his entire family, which is just awful. Let your wife be angry about this. She's completely out of line. What a strange reaction. I wonder what the root of it really is. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. That mother should write a book, How to Raise a Karen 101. Am I the jerk for holding a grudge against my dad, who took my step-siblings to Paris, but not me? A few weeks ago, I learned from my stepbrother's TikTok that my dad, stepmom, and 2 stepbrothers are in Paris. I was staying with my mom at the time. I'm female, 16, and I would have loved to have been there, but they didn't even tell me they were going. I immediately sent a text to my dad asking if they're enjoying their time in Paris, and despite reading it, he didn't reply until late at night. Then he tried to play dumb and said it's great and he wished I could be there. Yeah, me too. So I replied that he could have taken me, and he said it wasn't possible and we'll talk about it later. So when they returned, I told them that I'm hurt that they didn't take me. My dad took me aside and told me that their finances are very tight. This vacation was a gift from stepmom's parents, and they only bought it for my dad, their daughter, and their own grandkids, and not me. He reminded me that I shouldn't act in an entitled way. They were effectively guests, even though the grandparents weren't there, they just paid for it. And I wasn't invited, so I shouldn't act in an entitled way. I wasn't convinced. They could have refused to go without me, paid for me themselves, gone somewhere cheaper, stayed a little less longer, or asked my mom to pitch in, and she would have. Me not being there was exclusionary. If this was only about money, they could have made it work. So I told my dad that I was disappointed in him. So I came last night, and my stepmom's parents came over for dinner. The subject of the vacation came up, and everyone was talking about it, and I was just sitting there being quiet until I thanked them for doing such a nice thing for the family, while my dad looked at me in a frowned way. Everyone went quiet. My dad tried explaining that I should have understood that this was a very expensive gift. I'm acting like an entitled brat and should go to my room if I can't behave myself. I said it doesn't seem like I belong here anyway, and told them to enjoy your family dinner, and I left. Later, the grandmother came to my room and tried explaining that they gifted this to their grandkids and couldn't afford to include me as well. She said they initially only had a budget for 3, their daughter and kids, but stretched themselves to 4 to include my dad as well. But while they wished they could have done it for me too, they really could not stretch it to 5. So I told her my problem is with my dad, and I have no beef with her. But she doesn't get to act like she cares about me either, and it's okay. I was like, I'm a stranger to you, and you don't care about me, so have some courage. Put your big girl pants on and wear it on your sleeve, and asked her to get the heck out of my room. She left, and I heard her telling my dad that I was very rude to her, so I'm grounded until further notice. Am I acting like an entitled brat, and am I the jerk in this situation? Edit. Not that it's relevant, but step-grandmother's comment about trying to include me, but not being able to work out the budget was nonsense. They're very rich, and this was an excuse, and she was taking me for a fool. But this is not relevant to me holding a grudge against my dad. I'm only specifying it for clarity. They tried explaining that they gifted this to their grandkids, which now includes you. This is a pretty easy not the jerk. They could have gifted something for the whole family, but they didn't. Your dad didn't decline and say if his daughter can't go, then he won't be going. This is clearly going to be a no-contact situation in the future. When I was 16 and wanted to travel abroad, my parents had a deal that I needed to earn some of the money myself. Now, these weren't family trips, but a 16-year-old can earn money babysitting and doing odd jobs to defray costs of travel. The fact that your dad did not tell you and did not even bother to try and find a way to make it work shows you what kind of a man he is. Please ask to move to your mom's 100%. He has made his choice, and his family is comfortable treating you like garbage. Don't take it. Take him for college tuition and decide in your 20s if you want to bother with him again. You're right to be mad, and not the jerk now, but if you keep yourself in this toxic situation, you would be the jerk. Step-grandma literally gaslit you, and now you're grounded? Run, OP. OP's dad has shown her that he has a new family now. The cold hard truth is that he simply doesn't care about her. OP, move to your mother's permanently. Your father has shown you where his priorities lie, and they are not with you. Not the jerk. The worst part is that she found out about the trip from a social media post while they were in Paris. Her dad didn't even have the nerve to tell her about the trip in advance. That tells you everything you need to know. He knew it was wrong, and he hoped you'd get away with it. Too bad he forgot about TikTok. Sorry, you're the jerk here. If your dad didn't have the money, then he didn't have it. They should have told you beforehand that they were going, but given how you're acting, I see why they didn't. Your step-grandmother even tried to talk to you about that situation and told you they didn't even want to include your dad. But you were rude to her for no reason. You are a kid, and sometimes kids don't understand finances the way they think they do. You can be upset with your dad, but being mean to your stepmom was over the top. I'm surprised I had to scroll for so long to find this. I see an entitled person who believes if she can't get it, no one should get it. Ugh, you're the jerk. You know how this sub goes. In this thread, the kid is not the jerk for being upset, but in another thread, the kid should accept that their step-siblings get different things. I remember a similar post to this one where the grandparents only took OP out for the trip, but not OP's stepkids. OP's mom and stepdad were very upset about it. In that situation, everyone defended the grandparents because the step-siblings were not considered their family. You're the jerk. Your stepmother's family is not your family. Why would they extend the trip to you? Your father is only related by marriage. While it does suck to be left out, they had no obligation to take you too. OP, my dad had the obligation to include his daughter in his family vacation. If it was your mother's family or your father's family biologically, then yes. You obviously don't know the mother of your stepmother very well. You even said that she doesn't owe you. You have no tie to the person that was paying for the trip. Sure, they could have asked, but it was pretty clear to me that your stepmother's mother wanted this to be a trip for her family members. She doesn't know you very well. It sounds like your dad didn't invite you because he couldn't afford to pay your way. It sucks, I'm sorry, but your father only got to go because of who he's married to, or he wouldn't have even been invited. Yes, you're an entitled brat. You're the jerk. The way you spoke to the grandmother was rude, along with uncalled for. You don't know anything about other people's finances. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk, or is her dad? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for not asking for money after taking a neighbor's kid to the ER? Okay, so this happened on Wednesday, and my husband is still giving me the cold shoulder. It was about 1 in the afternoon when I, 33 female, heard a knock at the door. I open it and see the 2 boys who live above us in a panic. The younger one was washing the dishes when he accidentally dropped a glass in the sink and it broke, which accidentally cut his hand. Not something a simple band-aid could fix. They asked me for help as their mother, 31 female, father not in the picture, and their emergency contact were respectively at least 40 to 60 minutes away. They called 911 and had already been waiting for 15 minutes upstairs for help, but there was little sign of quick assistance. Our emergency and medical system is pretty broken at the moment. You're lucky to get an ambulance within 35 minutes. It's bad, so I'm sadly not surprised. Anyway, I quickly get myself together, wrap his hand a little better with a towel, call a taxi, and off we go to the ER. The older brother spoke to their mom on the way and kept mom up to date. Mom asked me if I wouldn't mind staying with them until she was able to get there. Estimated another 30 minutes. Ended up being 60 minutes due to traffic. Sure, no big deal. We're on our way and everything will be okay. She can take her time. Her boys are being looked after. The ride was only about $15, about a 10-minute ride, and I spent another $20 on food and a treat for them both. I'm sure after all the panic, they were not feeling all that great. Felt better after checking at the ER, and getting a little food and sugar back into their system couldn't hurt. Mom finally arrives and is extremely thankful. I say no worries at all, happy to help, wish them all luck and head on home. Later found out that he had to get a few stitches, but handled it like a champ. Hubby, 35, male, gets home. The hellos and daily debriefings happen. I tell him about the boys and everything. He's glad everyone was okay, but goes on to ask when I'm going to ask Jenna when she'll be paying us back. I was a little surprised and told him I hadn't planned on it. She doesn't know it cost us anything, and it's not a lot of money. It's $35. It's not going to break our bank. It was an emergency, no big deal. He counters with how we're trying to save for a house, car payments, all this other stuff, and starts getting very hot under the collar. I tell him I'm not going to ask her, but if she offers cash as a thank you, I won't decline. I'm not going to chase her down, however. He called me a fool and wasteful, and that her kids aren't our financial responsibility. I just rolled my eyes and walked out of the room. I spoke to my mom, who agreed they're not our financial responsibility, but also said that what I did was a kind thing and what lots of people would have done. So, sort of split the middle, I guess. Hubby is still upset, and now I'm wondering what I'm missing. Am I the jerk? Thank you for your opinion, hoping to see if I have a blind spot I can't see myself. Not the jerk, but your husband is a big one. My God, he has no heart. OP. Yeah, this is new for him. He's always been frugal, but this just feels like something else. I was definitely taken aback by his upset towards the situation. I don't know. There's frugal, but this is something else. Maybe there's a financial situation your husband hasn't told you about. OP. I don't know, but I'm seriously starting to wonder. Joint bank account seems fine, but we each have our own personal one as well. Regardless, this is not a healthy response. We're supposed to be partners, so if there is something going on, I'd expect a more adult and partner-oriented approach to discussing the issue. Not the jerk. $35 is nothing in the great scheme of things. It isn't going to make or break your fund to buy a house, and it was an emergency situation. That uncharitableness is really disturbing, honestly. OP. Yeah, that part threw me off hard. Like, oh no, we both have to work an additional 30 minutes to recoup that loss. We're definitely not rich, but we're also not poor. I don't know, something's off. I appreciate your comment and insight. I don't want to put crazy paranoid ideas in your head since I don't know your life, but have you considered that maybe your husband got fired from his job recently and is embarrassed to tell you, so he just pretends to go to work? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. I'd tell him if it is such a big deal, go ahead and ask her yourself. My father versus the Homeowners Association. I'm a little fuzzy on exactly when this was, but for loose context, it's around 2018. We're living in this little two-story in a subdivision in upstate South Carolina, which my parents still own. My family just had a full run of renovations done on the house. Kitchen remodel, new floors, wallpapers removed, new paint on the walls, etc. The folks who painted did an especially good job, and since they were a small local business, they wanted to know if they could put a little sign in our yard for a few days as advertisement. You know, those little plastic-type yard signs, nothing big or fancy. My dad was happy to oblige and showed them where to put it to avoid the sprinkler system. Everything's great. 2 days later, a letter arrives in our mailbox. It's from the HOA. According to the bylaws, no signage can be placed in a yard for more than 24 hours. We hadn't been planning to leave it up more than a few days, maybe a week at the most, but to be told that supporting a small business was an eyesore came well out of left field. This is the part where I tell you that my father, despite being a very considerate and respectful man, had something of a problem with authority, especially when that authority is arbitrarily telling him what to do on his own property. First thing he does is pull out his copy of the neighborhood bylaws. He and my mother both look over it, and lo and behold, the quoted passage does not indeed state that no signage or similar mode of advertisement is to be displayed in a yard for more than 24 hours. Not one to go down quietly, my father took to looking for any loophole he could find, and he found it in the word yard. 2 or 3 days after that, One of the ladies who worked for the HOA came down to our house to personally ask us to remove the sign. She and my dad stepped out on the front porch and must have been out there for nearly half an hour. I don't think I heard him say anything other than the occasional, or yes ma'am, until the very end. See, the sign was no longer in our yard, it was in the flower bed. Other parts of the bylaws, even in the cited section, distinguished the flower bed as separate from the yard. And since this particular clause mentioned the yard alone, the flower bed must have been fair game. And he told this, honestly quite nice woman as much, without so much as knitting his brows or raising his voice. The sign stayed in our flower bed, perhaps out of spite, for nearly another month before we finally took it down. Guest recognized me from a once popular TV show. Now my coworkers know my secret I've been keeping from them. So I was on an episode of a show that aired years ago that was wildly popular and showed how poorly run hotels could be turned around to turn a profit. I was a former housekeeper who applied for a front desk position at this particular hotel, only to have the GM bait and switch me and put me in housekeeping, and needing the money, I took the job. Worst decision of my life. A few weeks after employment started, we found out we were selected to be on this show. That was a nightmare in itself, and if you didn't already know, reality TV is totally scripted. I was actually being directed and told what to say when it came to a scene with the entire housekeeping department. I've long since moved on and tried really hard to forget about this moment in my life. I'm now a newly promoted front office manager for a much better hotel and love where I'm at in my career versus where I started out. I was helping a new desk agent check in a guest, and the guest just kept staring at me. I started to get uncomfortable, and I think he could tell. Guest: "You look familiar. Have we met somewhere before?" Me, checking the name on his reservation to see if it rings any bells. "No, sir, I don't think we've met before." Guest: "No, I've seen you before. I know I have. Where all have you worked?" Me, "I've only lived in this area for about 6 years. Before that, I was in a different state." "I think that's it. Where did you work when you lived there?" Me, this retail store, this giant gas station chain. I did a brief stint at this one hotel." "That's it! You were on that one show years ago." Me, facepalm. "You remember seeing me on that show? I was literally only filmed for maybe 5 minutes." Guest: "I'm such a huge fan. I still watch the old episodes on that one streaming service, and the hotel you worked at was always one of my favorite episodes. Have you been back? Did they ever get it turned around?" Me, "I wouldn't know, because shortly after that experience, I found a new job." Now a few staff members have stopped to listen because this was not something I've ever brought up before because of how embarrassing it was. Not to mention I worked for an idiot, and when I was threatened by coworkers, he turned a blind eye. So mentioning I was a part of this episode is not high up on my priority list. After I get him sent on his way, I have about 5 staff members from other departments questioning me about the TV show and why I never mentioned it and so on. Pretty soon this guy is back and telling everyone in the lobby that he sees about my fame and to come talk to me. No one did, thankfully. I think they thought he was completely off his rocker, which was nice because I really didn't want any more people knowing my deep dark hospitality TV experience. So if you're a fan of one of those shows and you recognize someone, maybe don't bring it up. Chances are we might still be embarrassed that we took part in a crap show circus called reality TV. Have you or anyone you've known ever been on TV? If so, what were you on? Please let us know. I think it actually sounds really cool, but what would I know? I've never been on anything like that. Today, a customer got annoyed, abandoned his shopping on my tail belt, and just walked out, and I felt for the guy. So this happened earlier today. I was on till serving, as were a couple of others. It was busy, so there were a few of us on the tills. As the number of people started to dwindle, the till in front of me closed down and was serving the last few customers who already had shopping on her belt. I had been serving for a good few minutes afterwards and started closing down too when I noticed the number of people at the till in front of me hadn't changed. There were 2 people left, a guy who had a few bits and an elderly woman who was in front of him. The elderly woman was trying to use a coupon that, for whatever reason, was simply not working, but was adamant about using it. I couldn't hear the details, but let's be honest, the lyrics may change a bit, but the dance is always the same. At this point, I had nearly served everyone who was left on my belt, and I honestly felt for the guy who, at this point, must have stood there waiting for 10 minutes or more. I managed to catch his eye, smiled, and gestured for him to come over to my till. He smiled back, picked up a couple of his items and put them on my belt. I only had one customer left before I could serve him. "Those are on offer," demands the woman I was serving, pointing at her bakery items. "Those are buy two, get one free. I know they are." "Sorry, but I'm pretty sure these are not the items on offer." "Yes, they are. I saw the sign. I know those are the ones on offer." "I'll get someone to check for you." A minute passes, and I get informed that her baked goods are in fact not on offer. She doesn't say anything. "So that'll be—" "What about those? I know there's an offer for them." She's now pointing at some other food items. "Get someone to check them too. I know they're on offer." I'm only partway through asking someone to now check for another offer when the guy who I had beckoned across mutters something under his breath and just promptly walks out of the store, leaving his shopping behind. As he left, I saw the elderly woman still at the till in front of me, now with the manager there too. Even though I knew I was going to have to put his shopping back, I honestly felt for the guy. Oh, and in case anyone was wondering, none of the items the lady at my till bought were on offer. As a guy who just wants my stuff and to get out, self-checkout is the best thing to ever happen. Obviously, that's not always an option. Am I the jerk for not allowing another passenger to recline in their seat? A few days ago, I was coming back from Hawaii on a flight that was due to take over 10 hours. As I sat down in my seat, I could already tell that this wasn't going to be comfortable. My knees were already pressed up against the seat in front of me. Some backstory. I'm 14, male, but I look way older due to my height and overall build. I have autism as well as a general fear of confrontation in any form. About an hour or so in, I felt the person in front of me start to recline their seat, a woman in her 40s that I will call A. I slightly pushed back, of course, as I was already cramped. However, A couldn't take a hint and pushed back harder. In response, I pushed back. Her husband, who resembled Snuffleupagus, who I will refer to as B, asked if I could stop pushing back so his wife could get some sleep. I said, "If horses can sleep standing up, so can you." which I admit may not have been the best thing to say in retrospect. I explained that my knees are already backed up against the seat and it would be too uncomfortable for me if she were to recline any further. They went back to their business for all of 30 seconds when she started pushing back, a lot harder this time. So I pushed forward with a lot more strength. This game of pushing ended with her getting up, seemingly in distress, and her husband turning around and getting in her seat, pushing it up on me. B said, "You're acting like a child." I responded, "I'm 14. I am a kid." At this point, he began violently shoving the seat in a jerky manner, and I simply put my headphones on and I ignored him, pushing against him with all my strength. B said, "You're not going to win this, buddy." That's when my mom noticed, and all heck broke loose. For context, I'm an only child with an overprotective mother. The plane was loud and she's half deaf. I didn't want to disturb her because she looked tired during the flight. She began yelling and he began yelling back. I don't remember much, but the whole plane was watching. I simply went back to my movie as the verbal fight started. Some flight attendants came over and B said he had a right to recline his seat. My mom didn't care, and it was getting to the point where it looked like they would have to land the plane. Thankfully, my cousins came over and diffused the situation. It also got me a sick upgrade too. The rest of the plane ride went smoothly. I feel like everyone who has commented here is likely short, so they don't get how uncomfortable seats can be. Frankly, the jerk here is the airline, which packs people in like sardines and then allows seats to decline. The problem is that actually both people have the right to the space. It's someone's legroom and someone else's reclining space. I never recline in coach because there's no space and it's rude in my opinion. You're the jerk. If you really had a fear of confrontation, you wouldn't have started all of this. The person in front of you had the right to recline the seat they paid for. You're the jerk. It's funny how you and your family are the only ones allowed to not be disturbed and comfortable on the flight. She bought this seat. She can recline. If you have issues, then your parents should have upgraded you. You probably got a sick upgrade because there was room and the flight staff was tired of your crap. You were being disruptive and you escalated it immediately. Well, who do you think is a jerk? OP or the people sitting in front of him? Please let us know. Not too friendly, but at least he's not a doormat. Make up a BS policy to appease the drama queen? Sure, I'll follow it. Many years ago, I worked in back office support in a large office with lots of departments. Generally speaking, we had core hours, especially for lunch. Core lunch hours were between 12 to 2, meaning you had to take your lunch sometime between 12 to 2. Different departments had different rules for lunch depending on their needs. For example, the call center had a strict rotation for when people could take their lunch since they needed constant phone cover. However, I was in back office support. Things were a lot more relaxed because we rarely took phone calls. Most of our work came in the form of tickets and tasks logged through our system and emails from other departments with general queries. The only requirement was that at least one manager and 2 members of staff had to be there at all times in case a colleague from another department needed to see us, or in an emergency, call us. So generally, we could take our lunch anytime we wanted, as long as it was between 12 to 2. There was no policy telling us when to take our lunch aside from the one I already mentioned. I would always take my lunch at 12:28. The reason was I actually wanted to take it at 12:30, but one of our call centers was the floor above us and they stampeded down the stairs at 12:30. I had been in an accident some years ago that gave me issues with my back and hips, so I could be a little unsteady on the stairs, so I left at 12:28 so I could avoid the call center stampede. I suppose I could have gone at 12, but the staff canteen was never set up and never had food ready at 12, hence why I left at 12:28. Now, I always restarted work at exactly 1:28, sometimes a few minutes earlier. An hour was far too long for me, so I was often back at my desk nursing a coffee while scrolling through my phone, which we were allowed to do as long as we were on break, by around 1 p.m. as well. However, if a colleague came to me and asked for help, I always helped and just added the time I was helping them to my lunch. So if I spent 10 minutes helping a colleague, I'd come back at 1:38. All this would be logged in our timesheet. I wasn't doing anything outside of policy. We were allowed to do this. Anyway, one of my colleagues had obviously noticed. Let's call her Mindy. Mindy considered herself the queen bee of the office. Everything had to be done her way. She was perfect, and she always tattled on people for petty stuff, like that one of our colleagues used too many staples, or that colleagues were literally a few minutes late, or took too many bathroom breaks. She literally had a tally of how many drinks and bathroom breaks everyone took so that she could tattle. She even once tried to tattle and say one of our colleagues came in drunk and she could smell it on her breath. What she could smell was Lemsip and cold meds. The colleague she was tattling on had a cold. Unfortunately, Mindy was also our manager's favorite employee, so she got away with a lot. So she tattles to our manager about how I'm always leaving for lunch 2 minutes early and yet often come back late. My manager tears me a new one for this. I explain to him that the times I come back late are when I've helped a colleague, and he should see it logged on the sheet. I also explain why I leave at 12:28. He then says, "Yes, well, whether it's 2 minutes or not, we have core hours in the office." I say, "Yeah, 12 to 2. I can take my lunch anytime between 12 to 2. 12:28 is within these core hours." So he tried to say no. In our department, we have a policy of 12:30 to 1:30 to make sure enough people are in the department. I say, "I've never heard of this policy. This has never been the case." But he brushes me off and says, "You take your lunch at 12:30 and come back at 1:30. You don't deal with any queries or anything that will delay you. Just take your lunch on time and come back on time. No exceptions." Okay then, that's exactly what I'll do. No matter what I'm doing, even if I'm in the middle of a task, I get up and go to lunch. Even if I am at my desk and a colleague comes to me, I tell them I'm on lunch and tell them to come back later. Then, surprise, surprise, Mindy comes along with an urgent query at 1:10. I look her dead in the eye and say, "Sorry, I'm on lunch." She storms off to our manager to tattle on me. I get called into his office because she had lodged a complaint against me for bullying her and being uncooperative. Mindy is in the office with my manager acting as a mediator, and he asks why I refuse to help her. She's grinning maliciously with her trademark, "You're going to get it" face. She spoke to me at 1:10. I had 20 minutes left of lunch. "You said the policy is lunch 12:30 to 1:30. No exceptions," I said, smiling. Mindy looked like she wanted to slap me, and my manager was furious, but knew he couldn't do or say anything because that was what he had said. Eventually, the manager ended up being promoted and moved to another department. Our new manager has no patience for Mindy's excessive tattling and at one point shouted at her, "This isn't primary school, and I'm not your teacher. Go back to your desk and focus on your own work instead of everyone else." The new manager also rescinded the "no exceptions" BS policy my manager had made on the spot, and as long as we came back on time and didn't leave the department understaffed, she couldn't care less when we took our lunch. My new Karen neighbor won't let me do my job. So my grandparents live in a gated community. It's kind of expensive, so people who live there can be kind of jerks, but nothing as bad as in this story. So I went over to my grandparents one weekend, and my grandmother asks me if I could go help the neighbor's kid with a school project. It was about 8 at night, but I can never say no to this woman. I went over, ready to do some work, when entitled neighbor answers the door. Karen: "You must be the neighbor's grandson. Thanks for coming by so late." Me: "Yeah, it's cool. Where's your son?" "He's over there by the computer. He already has the research done. He just needs help making the presentation." I think to myself, wow, this'll be easy. I introduced myself to the kid. He's about 12, and overall he was a nice kid, if not a little nervous. As we're doing the project, entitled neighbor is standing by the counter watching over us and commenting on the work. Karen: "Could you make that picture bigger, please? We want to make sure the class sees it. Same with the words." Me: "Yeah, sure, no problem." I make the pictures a bit bigger and more central and make the words look more like commentary. She chimes in again, a bit ruder. "Bigger. We have to make sure the people in the back can see it." Me: "But if we make it bigger, we won't be able to fit the words and pictures on one slide." "That's fine. Just make them bigger." Me: "Okay, tell me when." I start slowly making the font bigger until one of them tells me to stop. She doesn't tell me to stop till I get up to 48, and even then, the words are barely fitting on the slide. Entitled mom: "Perfect. Now, just do all the slides like that, and we'll be done in a jiffy." We weren't gonna be. Every time I tried to help this kid make his presentation look better, even when he tried to make it look better, she had to interject. It was always, "Make this bigger. I can't see that from here. Take that off, it looks tacky." This went on for 2 hours. Finally, we finish. Karen's kid: "This looks great. Thanks so much. I can't wait to show this off in class." That's when I noticed that the presentation is 36 slides long. There was absolutely no way he was going to be allowed to present something this long in a classroom. I told him as much, and I said the same to his mother. Karen: "No, I think it looks perfect. I'm sure the teacher won't mind his being a little extra long." Me: "But he could seriously lose points if he doesn't shorten it, or worse, doesn't present." Karen's kid: "I mean, we can shorten some of the less big stuff." "Fine, if you think it'll get him a better grade, but it's on you if he fails." I was a bit annoyed at that comment, but at least I made some progress. We managed to bring the slides down from 36 to 28, at which point it was hard to compress stuff without deleting sections outright. Now, some of you are probably saying, "Goodness, 28 slides for a 12-year-old? That's a lot for a teacher to assign." I do agree, but this story takes place in late January, so I figured it was one of those Christmas break projects that were really long. When I finally take a look at his rubric for the project, I saw something horrible. The assignment called for 8 to 10 slides. I was so upset because we now had to cut out so much. I go to the mother to talk about it. Me: "Hey, so the project calls for 8 to 10 slides, so we're gonna have to cut some stuff out." "No, my child spent hours getting that research, and all of it is going to be in the presentation." Me: "But the teacher will never let him actually present that in class. It's too long." Entitled mom, slightly more annoyed: "I thought you were working for so long to fix that problem." Me: "That was before I knew it was originally 4 times as long as the maximum." "Whatever. It's better to go over than under anyways. If he's done with the presentation, you can leave." At this point, it was almost 11 at night, and I just didn't have the energy to deal with it anymore. I wasn't even getting paid for this. The most I got was some hot chocolate. It tasted horrible, by the way. About a week and a half goes by, and my grandmother calls me, saying she just got off the phone with her neighbor. Apparently, her kid got a terrible grade on the project, and it was all my fault. I caught up with the kid a while later. He got a B-. I told her the situation, and she hangs up to talk to the lady. When she calls back, she says that the lady did confirm that's what happened, but still says it's my fault. Needless to say, I was not asked, nor did I ever offer to help her again. This kid's mother is an idiot. Not your fault, you tried to help, but she has too big of an ego. Lesson learned: if you go to help someone, but for some reason they don't let you help, walk away. Have you ever had to do a PowerPoint presentation for a class? If so, did you like it? Please let us know. I despise PowerPoint and everything about it. Am I the jerk for saying I told you so at my sister-in-law and brother's wedding? I, 27 female, have known my sister-in-law for 3 years. She's the type of person that always needs to be right and needs to be in charge of everything. She's very demanding as well. My sister-in-law's family members are very disrespectful and rude. They don't clean up after themselves, expect everyone to act like maids or servants around them, and they think very highly of themselves. They can never be wrong, and they think they can do no wrong. Because of this, my sister-in-law's family don't really punish their kids. Like, they have no consequences. They aren't even like the gentle parenting type either. My sister-in-law's sister has a son, and he's extremely chaotic. He throws tantrums if he doesn't get something, and he has to be the center of attention 24/7. When there are birthdays, he needs a gift or opens the gifts and needs to blow out candles. It's frustrating, which is why I'm not usually around at family gatherings and other stuff. I was with sister-in-law since her friend canceled on her, and I was helping make invitations. I saw one of the names was sister-in-law's nephew. I asked if she wanted him to go, and she said yeah. She then asked why, so I told her why. I talked about his tantrums and how he'll probably throw a fit during the reception and other stuff. She got mad and said that she didn't know what I was talking about. She told my family and her sister, which caused her sister to write me a message saying how I was wrong and other stuff like that. Well, day of the wedding comes, everyone comes in happy except nephew. He's crying and he's about to throw a fit. When my sister-in-law came out, he literally started screaming. The poor pastor had to stop and wait for the parents to leave. During the after party, he was back and crying again. While they were cutting the cake, he screamed extremely loud and pushed my sister-in-law, who was holding a glass of wine, and it spilled on her. She started crying. She turned around to leave, and I looked at her and I said, "I told you so." She started crying even more. When I got home, my mom called me extremely immature and wants me to apologize. So, am I the jerk? You're the jerk. This is absolutely a "you're not wrong, Walter, you're just a jerk" situation. It doesn't matter that you were right. There was no need to be that person in the moment. I disagree. I think Bridezilla had it coming to her, but let's read some more replies. Exactly. What did OP hope to accomplish by telling someone who is already having a horrible time, "I told you so"? Did it bring OP some additional sense of satisfaction or joy? Well, it probably did. OP said that sister-in-law was always right, could do no wrong, was demanding. When OP pointed out that the kid would have a tantrum and sister-in-law said he wouldn't, OP knew better. Then when it happened, it was probably irresistible to say that. I don't blame them, really. Everyone sucks here. Bad moment to say something like that, but man, I wish I was there to see it. They got mad at you for trying to save the wedding from drama, then you're proven right, and now it's suddenly not okay. Again, bad timing, but I love the pettiness. I'm saying not the jerk, but really you are a justified jerk. You raised your concerns, your sister-in-law ignored them, which was fine. She then told you you were wrong, which you weren't, but that's fine. She then told her family, who sent you messages about, "How could you say that about my baby?" which was really wrong. Your sister-in-law spread your warning to her family, who then messaged you. This entitles you to say, "Forget you, you were wrong, I was right, I told you so." Well, what do you think? Was OP a jerk for this or not? Please let us know. I think hero is a more fitting word for OP. Am I the jerk for returning the money to my mother-in-law in front of everyone? Me, 28 female, and my fiance, 27 male, are getting married in March. I come from an upper-class family, and my fiance is lower middle class. This is a delicate matter for his family. Despite me being able to pay all the costs of the wedding, my parents gave the equivalent of 70% of the value of the wedding as a gift, which would be around $30,000, fictitious value. And fortunately, my parents did not use this gift as a form of want to control everything at the party. When my fiance's parents learned that my parents had given this gift, my fiance and I didn't mention it, my sister-in-law snitched on them. They decided to give their gift as well and gave $3,000, an amount for which I was very grateful to have received, and I deeply regret doing this, especially for my mother-in-law. I don't plan on having a traditional wedding party. My dress won't be white, lilac. There will be no religious ceremony, and it will be a party for only 30 guests, and my fiance agrees and supports this. This bothers my mother-in-law a lot, especially the dress not being white. Over time, she gave up on imposing the idea of a big party and not having a religious ceremony. But the dress is something she annoys me too much, and it continues even though I snapped on her or my fiance tells her to stop. Because of that, we are low contact with her. Yesterday it was my sister-in-law's birthday and I went with my husband. Obviously, my mother-in-law was there. Not even 5 minutes after I stepped into the party, she started again with the idea of having me wear white because it's an important tradition, and it got to the point where she was talking to her sisters about how this new generation doesn't respect traditions, and that she was sorry and afraid of these new parties. I had my limit when she spoke loud and clear that in her time, the bride and groom respected their parents' opinions, even more so if they helped pay for the wedding. I was very angry and said, "Enough, I can't take it. It's not worth listening to other people's crap for this money." I had this money in my pocket and was going to deposit that same amount in the bank later, but I gave up and gave it to her in front of everyone. And I added that now she won't say anything because she's not helping. This generated a confusion of tremendous proportions. My fiance's entire family fighting on me, saying that I humiliated her in front of everyone and demanded the amount they gave. Well, I had to leave early so it wouldn't get any worse. My fiance understands why I did it, but said it wasn't my best moment and I could have done it in private and not in front of everyone. Am I the jerk? Extra, explaining some doubts in the comments. 1. It is not $1 and the values are fictitious. It was only given as a parameter of values only. 2. I didn't have exactly $3,000 in my purse. Translator was wrong here. It was about $2,000 and I was going to deposit it after the party. 3. I've lived with my husband for years. We've been married for years and we're just getting official, so I call him husband or fiance, whatever. 4. My sister-in-law found out about this money because my husband, they are very close, told her that he was happy that my parents covered more than half of the expenses and the amount not spent on the wedding we saved to start IVF next year. I think that's it. Not the jerk. If she wanted to play the "I'm paying for the wedding" card, then you had every right to give the card back and take it off the table. She is the one that made it public, not you. Do not respond to any of the drama and continue forward with grace. You cannot control how people behave, but you can control how you react. You did what you had to, now leave it at that. Everything is urgent all the time. You have to prioritize everything. I recently left a job where I had a really toxic relationship with my boss. He was old school and prioritized work over everything else, expecting everyone else to do the same. His expectations were so high, it disrupted my work-life balance significantly. I have 2 kids, and at this point in my life, I'm not doing late-night meetings or weekend reports. The company worked from home 50%, except my boss didn't believe in work from home, so we were 100% in the office, even when lockdown was at its highest and the city was flooded and the commute was dangerous. We were the only team of about 50 in the office. I told him I was overwhelmed, that I had too much work to meet all deadlines, and he told me that I have to prioritize everything because everything is urgent. When I asked, what should I do first, he told me, everything. You get the idea of his approach. The company worked with flexitime. As long as your hours equal 37.5 each week, 7.5 hours per day average, it's all good to work anytime between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. I could do a 10-hour day, then a 5-hour day, as long as it's balanced out. My boss, however, demanded those hours be worked between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. And if on any day I was to work 15 minutes over that 7.25 hours, then he wanted to be told what I was using that time for and to have his approval first. I used to start work at 7 a.m., hit the gym in the morning around 9:30 for 45 minutes. When I joined his team, he didn't like this. He set up a meeting with me every morning at 9:30 a.m., which he mostly didn't show up to, but certainly put an end to my morning sessions. I told him I found it detrimental to my mental health. He told me I needed to find another time. The reason I went at this time was that I had my 2 kids and my wife worked shifts. My boss, meanwhile, has fantastic work-life balance. He often starts at 9:30 to 10 a.m. and finishes early or randomly decides to work from home. He then asked that I send him multiple emails throughout the day, every day, telling him what I'm working on and seeking his approval for stuff that has never required approval previously. I obliged. I sent him 5 emails a day, every day, waffling on about what I was doing. I'd also ask questions in those emails, forcing him to read and respond to them all. After a while, I start to make the questions more subtle, not dot pointing them, but sneaking them into the body of the text. I'd ask the same question multiple times, knowing by this point he's bored of reading my emails. And then when he didn't give me the answer, I'd let the repercussions happen. The repercussions that didn't exist until he demanded I seek approval. These repercussions were usually raised by my boss's boss. I knew they were happening, but I let it happen. I'd then respond to the group emails where my boss would blame me and include the emails I sent him seeking approval as he had requested. This became a fairly frequent occurrence since I was sending 25 or more emails a day, which seriously was a huge chore on top of my high pressure, about 200 million worth of contracts annually role. I had a really high reputation in the office for my work. Everyone seemed to respect me but him. His manner with people wasn't always appreciated. He would set arbitrary deadlines and then half of them for seemingly no reason. When I refused to enact those, I often had to hand those deadlines on. Citing anti-bullying policy, he'd tell me to just get it done. I understand that I wasn't the best, most obedient employee, but he made me this way with his micromanagement. Eventually, I found a new role elsewhere. I demanded an exit interview where I explained how I don't believe he managed his team in accordance with the company's intentions, how I had expressed a concern for my mental health and he offered no compromise, how he purposely booked meetings to disrupt my day, and how he demanded I email him over and over, and asked approval for 15 minutes of flexibility on start and finish times. The lady from HR had recently encountered my boss, and it wasn't pleasant. He had mistreated her, and she already had her crosshairs on him. I recently met up with a colleague from that team. A week after I left, my now ex-boss was demoted, no longer manages anybody, and has a much stricter schedule himself, now that he reports to someone. My old team are much happier now and much more productive. I'm thinking about applying for the now vacant role as his boss. Am I the jerk for being upset at my family for giving me baby clothes for my birthday? So I just had a baby a few months ago, and a lot of people have been really generous with buying us baby clothes. I asked my family to stop because we have more than enough clothes. We also get hand-me-downs, but some family insist on buying brand new stuff for us because they don't want my baby wearing just hand-me-downs. So it was my birthday a week ago, and a few family members got me birthday gifts. One family member gave me a huge fancy gift bag, and inside was all baby stuff. Bibs, clothes, and soothers and stuff I already have and don't need more of. I guess I looked disappointed, so she made a comment about how rude it was of me to not appreciate a gift. Another family member sheepishly handed me another gift, and it was another "I love my mom" type of onesie. I tried to act thankful, but some family members could tell I was upset. Several people have told me I was ungrateful and selfish, and I should just appreciate what I've gotten, but I'm so upset. I feel like no one cares about me, just my daughter. When I told a friend about this, they said I'm a jerk for being jealous of my kid, and I should just appreciate all the nice things they got me for my baby. Am I the jerk for not appreciating what I got? Am I honestly being jealous of my baby? I don't want anything extravagant this year. I would have been happy with something from the thrift store, as long as it was meant for me and not my kid. I felt like some people used my birthday as an excuse to go baby shopping. I know everyone is excited for my baby, and I love them more than anything, but it's like everyone has forgotten about me. Not the jerk. It's your birthday, not your kid's. Unless you specifically ask for baby clothes and baby stuff, some people do, they should buy things for you, not your kids. You're not just a mother, you're yourself, a whole person, and you're allowed to be treated as such every day, and even more on your birthday. I'm sorry it sucked, but for all it's worth, I wish you a happy birthday, and I hope you'll receive more support from your friends and family. OP. Thanks. I think most people feel like now that I'm a mom, everything I do and get should be going towards my kids. These same family members that bought the baby stuff for me give me grief if I spend more on myself because in their eyes, I should be buying my baby nicer stuff or putting it in a college fund. Not the jerk. As you said, these things are for your baby, not for you. It's perfectly fine to want things for yourself and feel good about yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. I got plushies for Christmas before the birth and a voucher for a baby shop for my birthday. But for me, there was nothing. Of course, I'm grateful, but still, no one thought about me. I think it's generally the case in society that mothers are just mothers even on days like this. Or did the kid's father only get baby things? And don't forget, you also asked them not to give anything more. OP. I can't stand this attitude towards mothers. I feel like I've lost my personhood the moment I became a mother. I love my baby to the ends of the earth, but I feel like nobody realizes I exist outside of being a mom. Dads, on the other hand, get rewarded for doing the bare minimum. This is exactly why I don't want kids, ever. Can't approve overtime? Okay, I'll just leave early on Friday. For background, this took place in the 1990s when a T1 1.5 megabyte data connection would run you over $500 a month, and only the phone company and a very few large data-centric companies would even dream of having a T3 43 megabytes. I was working for one of those telephone companies in the central office where we provisioned and troubleshot those very lucrative services. There were 4 people in my department, making it one of the larger such offices in the state. One day, there was one person on vacation and another one out of the office for some other reason. Tech number 3 called in sick. I was alone for 8 hours with a workload of 4 technicians. Well, as a good employee, I prioritized and got all the trouble tickets done and all of the most urgent new services installed. Everything due that day was done, but in the process, I missed my 2 15-minute breaks and worked through lunch. My supervisor came down at the end of the day to congratulate me for my good work, and he was watching me fill out my timesheet for 9 hours. He started to get a little panicky and said he couldn't approve overtime. He would get in trouble. I reminded him that I had just spent 9 hours doing the work of 4 people, 32 hours worth of work. He said it wasn't approved. I said, what can we do then? I worked it, I need to get paid. He suggested I leave an hour early on Friday, so I agreed. Come Friday, I decided to take full advantage and only take a half-hour lunch break so I could leave at 3:30 instead of 4. Well, guess what? The vacationer and the sick person had not returned, so it was just the 2 of us. The other person disappeared at 1:30 or so. I found out later she was interviewing for a management position. At 3, I got paged for a ticket on one of those very expensive T3s down hard. I was to join a conference bridge to assist in troubleshooting. I joined the call, then at 3:25 I said, sorry, I have to drop off. I'm not approved for any overtime. The night shift person will be here in a half an hour to help. I dropped off, knowing the night person on duty had never worked on a T3 before. I hadn't even reached my car when the pager started blowing up. Overtime is approved, please stay on. But I had already clocked out, so I just smiled and got into my car, drove home, and took my wife out for a long overdue date night. HOA, a mansion and the view. I lived in this town surrounded by magnificent vistas. There was a small development on the outskirts for upscale homes and mansions. Below the development were a few older homes. Many celebrities and business owners had vacation properties in the area, multi-million-dollar houses that they used maybe 1 month out of the year. Real estate had always been at a premium. There was one older home amongst all these giant view lots. A new buyer was a guy who owned a slew of RV dealerships and had obscene amounts of money, so he bought the most prominent lot on top of the hill as you enter the development of maybe 20 lots. His project was a massive stucco structure with a multi-car garage and a much bigger RV storage space with a huge roll-up garage door. Think of the biggest RVs you've ever seen, and he had a garage built for it with an automatic door. The house was a nondescript sand color with a red tiled roof, and the entire lot was tastefully landscaped with different kinds of rock, small mounds here and there, and a few shrubs to be low maintenance. The back of the property was fenced in with an 8-foot or higher block wall. The fence itself was probably $100,000. His neighbor was a school teacher who had lived there before the development started and had a modest house. He decided to take advantage of the skyrocketing land prices in the neighborhood and sell, except no one wanted his crappy house when there were much larger empty lots available. He decided the real issue was that the new behemoth blocked his view, and that's why no one wanted to buy his 3-bedroom ranch house at mansion prices. It was really that his home didn't appeal to the market. So he became the president of the HOA, which included the older homes and the new development, and then the harassment started. The HOA had formed after the RV mansion construction had begun, but the home was so big it took almost a year to finish. The HOA had passed a design theme rule that all houses must be painted in a specific color palette, with the predominant color being a taupe that was darker than this man's standard beige stucco color house. The palette included the taupe and a selection of trim colors in pink, teal, or tan. It was intended to give the community a Santa Fe look and feel, which just happened to be the colors of the president's crappy house. The RV owner took the HOA to court, and the trial dragged on for a year. The guy never used the property, claiming it was still under construction during this time. He lost in court and had to repaint his property using only the design-themed approved colors. So the guy brought out his contractor and had him repaint the entire property the Pepto-Bismol pink trim color. Everything was painted this color: the house, the fence, the trim, and the rocks in the yard. Then he had the massive driveway to the garage done in the same pink stamped concrete. Even the garage doors were pink. He locked up the house and never stayed there. The HOA was in an uproar because this house could be seen at the top of the hill for miles. None of the other lot owners broke ground. The president's home didn't sell for 2 years. Sure, I'll say something. I work in security for a major US manufacturer, which, despite all its flaws, is a much better job than any I've held in the past. After I was hired, my manager warned me that HR has an outsized role in the company compared to others I may have encountered. I haven't necessarily noticed this myself, but I've only been with the company for a short time. Regardless, I always take HR concerns to heart because I like this job and don't want to jeopardize it. Now, the strangest thing about this job, to my mind, is that employees do not have access to the company's policies. I've asked for a copy of the employee policy manual more than once and have been reportedly told that no such thing exists. One day, I was working at the front security desk when the HR manager, Karen, not her real name, but her real temperament, approaches and starts chatting with me. Everything was pleasant until an employee entered the building wearing pajamas. Karen starts fuming and tells me that I need to go say something to the young lady about her pajamas. I ask why, and Karen turns her attitude towards me with, "Because it's against company policy, and I said so." Okay, got it. No problem. I go and flag down the young lady and tell her, "Those pajamas look very comfortable, but the HR manager would like to have a word with you about them," and point to Karen. I go back to my chair and the young lady approaches Karen, who's acting flabbergasted that she's going to have to deal with this. Karen manages to mumble her way through, telling her that her clothes are against policy. The young lady asks to see said policy. The pair head back toward, presumably, the HR offices, and I go back to whatever it is I was doing. The next day, my big boss, who's my manager's manager and is about 3 levels higher up than Karen in the corporate structure, calls me into his office and asks why Karen wants me written up for insubordination. Having only had one interaction with Karen that day, I tell him about what happened. He basically tells me not to worry about anything, that he will handle it, and that I will not be written up. The next day, the security office and every security post has a memo posted from my big boss. I don't remember it word for word, but the gist of it said, "We are paid to handle security and emergencies only. We do not handle policy enforcement. If you are approached about a policy violation, you are to direct that person to their manager or to HR." I've only seen Karen a few times since that day, but every time I have, she has flat out ignored me. Karen keeps eating my food, so I stopped buying it. I've been doing all my shopping online, from groceries to clothes, everything, which means I usually get a lot of deliveries. I also buy a lot of stuff for my family to use, especially when groceries and basic necessities. I started buying from more small local businesses, it being the lockdown and me wanting to help them more instead of big businesses like Amazon. This has meant having to deal with incredibly vague or straight up wrong delivery information. I've worked at a small business before, so I expected these problems and I don't mind it. Few weeks ago, Mom doesn't work anymore, Sis is on term break, and I'm working from home having a meeting. A delivery comes and no one answers the door. I have my headphones on so I can't hear the bell. The delivery man calls me and tells me that he's been ringing the door and no one is answering even though he can hear the TV. I apologize and run out to collect the parcel. See my mom in front of the telly with so much indifference. This makes me mildly annoyed and I asked her nicely to help open the door next time. Immediately, she screams at me for assuming she has nothing to do, which sets off this shouting match between her and I. My sister comes out of her room, takes my mother's side, and shouts at me for being rude, just for expecting my mother to answer the door. At this point, I'm livid, and I ask if it's too much to expect my own family to help with these things, especially when I'm working. They both go on about how it's my personal responsibility to collect my own deliveries, and that I should not take for granted that they'll help just because they're at home, and that I should tell them when I have deliveries coming, to which I try to explain that the often vague delivery estimates I get This one in particular was supposed to come 2 days later. I point out to them that most of the deliveries that come for me end up being shared by the family, like groceries, coffee, necessities, etc. And that at the start of the year, before my mom quit her job, I was working from home alone, collecting everyone's deliveries even when no one tells me about any incoming ones. I singled out one day my sister had 4 deliveries and I collected them all with no complaints. But obviously, none of it gets through to them and I give up the argument since I was outnumbered. Bring on the malicious compliance. I stopped ordering groceries for the whole family and food runs out. Both mom and sister just assume that I would order more, and when I don't, they question me about it, and I tell them that it's their own personal responsibility to get their own groceries. A couple of deliveries came from my sister when she wasn't home, and I didn't bother receiving it because the personal responsibility was hers to collect. Plus, she didn't tell anyone about them. Turns out, one of those deliveries was a laptop, and because no one answered the door, it was left outside and got stolen. My sister got, rightfully, angry at me and my mother, but I used their BS personal responsibility excuse back on her. Now, no one is talking to each other, but I don't care. I feel like I've willingly and readily helped them, but when I ask for help in return, it's way too much for them to do so. This might be petty, but oh well. It's the card they chose to play. Sell unsanitary skincare products? I'll get your business shut down. I'm 24, female. My friend, who's 25, female, has been struggling a lot financially ever since we graduated college. She lives in a really broken down house with a bunch of health hazards as she's not a clean person. She has 4 dogs and they go to the bathroom on the floor and she barely mops or dusts the place. She also has a bad roach infestation. How people live is not my business, but my friend also started a homemade skincare company. I went to her house one day to drop off some celebratory cake for my fiance and I's engagement party, which she could not attend. When I got there, I saw her making some body butter in a mixing bowl. She dropped a lot of the powder she was using on the floor and just swept it back up and put it into her bowl. I told her she shouldn't sell that, but she said that it was fine and that she had done stuff like that before. I was disgusted and quietly left. She's given free samples to our friends before, and most of the time they've broken out or got some kind of reaction after using it. Nobody ever said anything as to not discourage her, but this was so unsanitary and unsafe. She's pretty popular and good at advertising, so quite a few people have bought her things. She has about 4,000 followers, and a lot of people have complained, but she just deletes those comments. Mind you, these are all locals from our city. I texted her about it and told her to stop doing that, and she told me to stop meddling. I was honestly so fed up and thought about how dangerous this was for customers and made a public post exposing her, and she lost a lot of her followers and her reputation was ruined. She basically lost her source of income and people started demanding money and threatening lawsuits. One girl claimed she had broken out so bad in hives, she doesn't even list ingredients, that she had to get some sort of life-saving shot. My friend group is very angry at me and they've said mean things. I do feel bad because my friend already is struggling. I don't know if I can even call her my friend anymore. She's losing her income and possibly facing legal problems now because of me. But I really wanted to protect those people. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You probably saved someone's life by shutting her down. Not the jerk, exactly. She has no regard for the safety and wellness of the people purchasing her nasty stuff, and it's a good thing you made people aware. Not the jerk. What your friend did is gross. I don't want to put stuff on my face that touched the floor that probably had doggy doo on it. She needs to get a proper job to help her for the time being until she starts saving enough to then start a skincare company. Maybe try to give her some advice on ways to earn money. She could get a job if she has the qualifications. OP, we've all been trying to help her get a job, but she's been set on cosmetics and having her own business. Her degree in psychology won't get her a job in our city, and she doesn't want to work a cashier or cleaning job, etc. Not the jerk. Imagine if someone allergic to dog hair used her products. The lawsuit would have been way worse then. You did the right thing. You're the jerk. Jealous much? Why are you playing with her money though? You really think those big factories care about customers' health? All natural ingredients like what she was using are way better than the stuff corporations use. You reported her out of spite to shut down her business, and now people have to go back to using corporations' products instead of homemade. I hope she sues you for the damages you've caused her business. I own a daycare that might not be the cleanest place in town, but you know what? At the end of the day, I provide a service that helps people. Don't complain about a little bug bite that happened at my house as if it was my fault. Everybody's homes have a few bugs here and there. I can't even keep my dogs inside because parents who know nothing about animals want to complain about it instead of teaching their kids to not touch animals without permission. Newsflash, if your kid is going around poking random dogs, he just might get bit. I'm good though. I clean a few houses on weekends, and these people got buku money, so they don't even notice when I take stuff and go straight to the pawn shop. All I'm trying to say is don't play with people's money. It's hard out here. The last thing people should have to worry about are so-called friends trying to shut down their hustle when they getting money. Bruh. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her friend? Please let us know. My brain is still trying to process that last comment we just read. I'm suing my ex's stepdaughter if she doesn't pay for what she broke. I, male 38, have been separated from my ex-wife for almost 14 years. She's married now and has 2 stepdaughters. This one involved the older one, Anna, who's 17, I think. Our older daughter, Diane, who's 16, is really into calligraphy. My parents gave her a Japanese calligraphy brush as a gift for having a great school year. We came back from a trip and left them with her mother. I was just getting home when my youngest called me to return. Once there, they were having an argument, and my ex-wife and her wife were trying to mediate. Diane said that Anna stole her brush and broke it. Anna says she took it with permission from Diane. Not true, we checked, and she accepted breaking it, but replaced it with another one, a cheap one. My ex-wife and her wife claimed that it was not a big deal and Anna replaced it. I disagree and told them that either Anna or them have to order a new one or give the money for us to do it. They were willing to do it until Diane told them how much it would cost, $3,000. That's when they flipped the lid and asked why I'm buying something that expensive. I told them it's none of their business or the point. Besides, it was a gift from my parents, not me. They refused and said they can't do it without taking a hit in their finances. I told them that I don't care and they need to pay for it or I would be taking legal action against Anna since she admitted to taking it and breaking it. I told them to be quick because the brushes are limited. Our daughter decided to come with me and took their important things with them. My ex-wife, her parents, and her wife are blasting my phone saying I would ruin Anna's future and that I'm putting our daughters against them and ruining the relationship. We've been co-parenting really well, but I don't know. I think I'm being reasonable. She's not a kid anymore. They wouldn't be shocked if it was a high-end tablet, would they? Just because they don't value the value of an item, it doesn't mean it doesn't have value. Good luck getting the value back. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Anna is 17, not 7, almost an adult. She's old enough to know that she shouldn't take something that doesn't belong to her. By the way, I believe a limited edition brush can cost $3,000. Like, we see purse companies charging $1,800 for a trash bag. Not the jerk. If a gift that expensive has been broken, then yes, it needs to be replaced correctly. Anna is old enough to know not to take stuff that's not hers. It sounds like Anna is trying to lie on Diane. Diane said it was taken without permission, while Anna said she asked for it. Clearly she didn't ask for it. Definitely take them to court if they don't buy another one. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for demanding that the brush be replaced or not? Please let us know. $3,000 for the brush? Reddit boy, I think we got into the wrong industry. My own mother isn't inviting me to her wedding. I'm 15 female, and my mother's, who's 35, only daughter she has from her previous marriage. She has 3 kids, the rest being 18 and 16. They're boys. This is important to know. Last week, my mom was talking with one of her friends about the color she wanted the bridesmaid dresses to be. My mom had been planning this wedding with her new boyfriend for the past 2 months or so. They've been engaged for about 1 year. The wedding is in December and on the day before my birthday. Me and my mom have been planning a party for me around the same time she was for the wedding. She insisted it was all right and that her boyfriend and her would go on their honeymoon the next day. While she was talking, I asked her when we were going to look for my dress since she had asked me to be the flower girl. I could see the disappointed look on her face when I asked her, which confused me. She responded only a few minutes later and said, "We'll talk about it later." A few hours later, my mom came to me. I thought she was going to talk about the dress situation, but instead, she set me down and explained how her new boyfriend thought it would be a better fit for their 3 daughters to lead the wedding. Whatever, I was cool with that, but it's important to note that my mom had always wanted all the girls. I was a girl, but I had looked too much like my father, which caused a strain in our relationship. My dad explained to me how my mother had postpartum when she had me and just couldn't connect with me because of it. So when she gave birth to my 3 younger step-siblings, who all looked like her, triplets who are 6 years old, she was obviously overjoyed. It hurt to see, but I was happy for her. My brothers had a similar experience, but were significantly better because they looked more like her. I know this is an overdramatic thing to say, but sometimes I feel like because my mother didn't feel as connected with me at birth was because I was a letdown right out the gate. After she was done, I asked her again about the dress because I still didn't have one. Again, that same disappointed look on her face came before telling me I wasn't invited to the wedding, simply because her boyfriend thought I would upset his family because I was from my mom's previous marriage and he didn't like my dad. She also explained how my birthday isn't happening either due to him wanting to go on their honeymoon right away. It turned into a screaming match with me yelling, "I'm sorry I don't look like you enough for you to love me. I'm sorry you were too conceited for you to get over the fact that I look like my dad." I was kicked out by her boyfriend within the same hour because she had cried to him about what I had said. All my brothers know what happened and have now refused to go to the wedding, which upset her even more, though I don't care about how she feels right now. My brothers had an actual relationship with her, and I probably just messed it up by letting my anger get the best of me. Am I the jerk? Edit. I live with my dad full-time. There isn't any custody agreement that I know of. I usually visit my mom on my own free will or when she asks me to come over, so I'm not obligated to go over there. My parents were only married 2 years prior to having my second brother, divorcing after his birth. They dated after the divorce as a way to make up with each other, but it still didn't work out, but they had me. Edit. All my brothers are full blood. The girls my mom had are half-blood. I said step because I don't consider them to be related to me because I've never been in the room with them for more than 5 minutes due to my mom not allowing it. My brothers were only invited because her boyfriend actually likes them, and his family getting upset that I would be there was an excuse to exclude me. I honestly don't care anymore about the situation, seeing as how my brothers have my back. As for my dad, he's been threatening to call the authorities, but I've talked him out of it because I don't want to get her daughters involved despite there being no relationship. Not the jerk in any way, shape, or form. This makes me so sad for you. Your mom, on the other hand, and her fiance are both major jerks. Won't wait for your friend before we seat your table? Okay, follow me. I work for a chain restaurant as a hostess. There's about 150 to 200 locations across the country. It's a Southern-style restaurant and we line dance. That's just for reference. Considering this is not a small chain, we have corporate policies that all locations have to abide by. One of those policies is that we cannot seat an incomplete party. If you put your party in for 4 people, we have to be able to count all members of your party before we take you to your table. This allows for all members to be able to order their food at the same time and have faster table turnout. This policy has some guests grumbling, but most wait until they have a full party, except this one lady yesterday. She calls in for a party of 6 on our call-ahead wait list. On the phone, we make sure to tell every guest that they need to show up with the entire party. We send her a text to check in when the party is ready, and she does so. We page her to come inside, and lo and behold, there are only 5 members. I tell her we need to see that 6th member before we can seat them. No issue there, she goes back outside. 15 minutes later, she comes back in and says they're all here. I and my other hosts still only count 5 people. She makes a scene, saying it's ridiculous, and I direct her to the sign on the host stand that clearly states our policy. She said her 6th guest could be up to an hour late. I tell her no matter how late someone may be, we have to stick to our policies. I said it more professionally, but you get the gist. She looks to her husband, presumably, and turns back to me and says, "He's not coming anymore. Can we be set now?" Here's the malicious compliance. Most people know that tables come in the ability to seat in even numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, etc. She figured if she was a party of 5 and we set her at a 6 top, then her other party member would be able to sit. I tell her, okay, no problem. I'll remark you as a party of 5. I set her at a 4 top with a chair on the end. Boom! 5 tabletop for a 5-member party. Already limited space, and no way could another member sit down. She asks to sit somewhere else, and I tell her that the restaurant is packed, and if she had renamed her party as a party of 5 earlier, I would have been able to put her at a 6 top. 6th guy comes along almost an hour and a half later, Tried to pull up a chair, and my manager told them that more than one chair at the end of a four-top creates a fire hazard. Sorry, corporate policies. Not sure if this is considered malicious compliance. I'm still getting a hang of this subreddit, but thought I'd share a petty moment working as an underpaid college student in a busy chain restaurant. Edit. Here's a little more info as if it matters, but this lady was making a really huge scene when we said we couldn't seat her. Whether you hate the policy or not, I'm not about to risk my job over one guest who wanted her way and she wanted it now. My 2 weeks are in anyhow because of all the drama that happens sometimes, but I figured I'd share. Edit 3. Our call-ahead waitlist doesn't reserve you a table, it just gives you the opportunity to get the table you want first. If you're not there with your full party, your name gets moved down so the next party can be set until you're ready. Had a similar experience at a restaurant with a very strict rule on seating the entire party. This one is in LA and is really popular. Wait times are about 2 hours on average. You show up, put your name and party size down and wait. They don't take reservations. And you have to have the full group before they seat you. We had a huge party, but we split the group up into 2 smaller groups. Our numbers come, and lo and behold, someone is missing. We checked around and asked another party waiting around if one of them would volunteer to take the seat of the person running late, and we had agreed to give them a beer on us, as they warmed the seat for our latecomer. We had a friendly chat with the volunteer. He was happy enough for a seat and a free beer as his group waited. Totally worked. I saw some confused looks by the waitstaff, but hey, we were compliant. Am I the jerk for ruining my sister's vacation? I'm 22 years old. My sister is 26 and has 2 kids, a 2-month-old and a 2-year-old. I always thought she shouldn't have had another kid because she can barely take care of the other one, and most of the time asks other people to take care of them because she can't do it alone. Our mom is one of those people who goes and helps a lot, definitely now that the baby is born. Now for the vacation part. I booked a vacation to a beach a year ago. It was quite expensive, but this is something I really wanted, so I saved up for it. I asked our mom if she wanted to go with me. She said yes. I booked and paid for 2 people. A month before we left for the vacation, my mom said my sister was also coming with us because her boyfriend was away that same week on a bike vacation. There wasn't really a question in it, they just announced it. Afterwards, I went to our mom and said my concerns about how I was afraid I would have no time for myself and I would have to babysit all the time. Something about me, I'm high sensitive, and I get overwhelmed very quickly by constant loud noise, and being an introvert, being around people mentally drains me to the point that I can't do anything anymore but just sleep. They know this. We're now 4 days into the vacation, and everything I feared has come true. I have to constantly keep my 2-year-old busy while my mom and sister are on their phone or taking care of the baby. Even when I go somewhere else to be alone for a second, like lay on my bed or something, he follows and keeps asking to play. I love him, but it gets to be too much for me. The only way they leave me alone is when I'm sleeping, so I've been doing that a lot, which means that I wasn't able to do anything that I wanted to. My sister told me today that I'm ruining her vacation because I make a long face all the time. I don't know if that's an English expression, but in Dutch it means I'm not happy all the time. I was so annoyed. I told her, "What do you mean ruining your vacation? I paid for it. This is my vacation." She began yelling and said that just because I paid for everything doesn't mean I can sit here and ruin it for her. I said, "You invited yourself. I didn't ask you to be here, and you promised I wouldn't have to babysit." She began yelling louder and said I hadn't done anything for the baby. That's a lie. I had given him his bottle a few times and held him while he slept and cried plenty of times. I told her, "Who's been keeping the 2-year-old busy?" She got more angry and said, "Isn't that normal for you to want to play with the 2-year-old as his aunt?" Our mom was looking at me very distraught, because how could I complain about playing with my own nephew? They stormed out and yelled that there really is something wrong with me and I should think about what I said. I've been crying nonstop and I have no clue what to do anymore. They don't talk to me, and I'm stuck here with them until Friday. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Your sister sucks. And so does your mother. I'm sure she was worried about leaving her older daughter at home with her kids when both she and the father would be away. But it's not fair to ruin her younger daughter's vacation, which she paid for, by inviting the sister along. Not the jerk. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her mom and sister? Please let us know. No better way to spend your vacation than by taking care of someone else's kids. Am I the jerk for refusing to stay in my husband's childhood home if his parents wouldn't let me wear shoes inside? I have plantar fasciitis, and I'm in the middle of a rotten flare-up. One of the most important aspects of handling it is making sure to keep your arches supported at all times. This means that I basically haven't walked around barefoot for more than a minute here or there for the past 5 years. I have a pair of shoes for inside only. They've never been beyond the front door to my house. Then I have extra supportive other shoes as well. Then I have a pair of travel shoes that I take with me if I'm ever visiting someone's home. Well, I guess that was a huge issue for my mother-in-law because we visited their home for the first time since it started. I thought everything was going to be fine until I switched into my house shoes and she got on my case about no shoes in the house. I explained like I did above, and she just said it's the house rule and has always been. I looked to my husband for support or guidance, and he told his mom that it wasn't a big deal, the shoes have never been outside, etc. Mom wouldn't budge. I really wasn't looking to make my flare-up worse, especially when we had plans to go hiking with them. So I said that if I can't wear them, I'm going to have to probably stay elsewhere or join them outside. Mother-in-law said I was being melodramatic, and then said, "I've had PF before, and I didn't need to wear shoes all the time." I told her that was great, but that it had nothing to do with me. Well, she did eventually cave, and she was pretty passive-aggressive about it all. She kept staring at my feet, staring at the carpet after I'd walked on it, etc. Then when I took out my tennis ball to do my foot exercises while we were just sitting around watching a movie together, she kept huffing and rolling her eyes. So in general, I wouldn't think I was the jerk, but father-in-law took me aside on day 4 and asked me if I could just try to meet her halfway and maybe just wear them when I was walking around in the guest room. He said that they had extended enough hospitality and I could at least try not to be a poor guest. I just said no and told him to talk to my husband about it. He said there was no need for that and just sighed, and that was that. I'm kind of worried I was a nightmare guest. Am I the jerk? First-time poster, long-time reader. I was ready to agree with mother-in-law here because I'm a clean freak and I hate shoes inside. But I read the whole thing, and you're basically wearing what amounts to house slippers. Mother-in-law is being melodramatic. I can't imagine treating a guest like that in my house. Not the jerk. Agreed. Shoes in the house is usually a hard no for me, but indoor shoes to me are the equivalent of slippers. Nothing wrong with keeping your feet warm and supported so long as you aren't tracking dirt inside. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or mother-in-law? Please let us know. Is it just me, or does everyone seem to have hard floors now instead of carpet? I kinda miss carpet. Back when I was a kid we had carpet. Injure me, then fire me? Okay, I'll take you to federal court and report your wife for fraud. Earlier this year I was injured on the job. My employer never disclosed his LLC was workman's comp exempt until I was in the parking lot of urgent care. I'm in a bad state for workers' rights, and state law mandates that because my boss had too few employees, he was legally exempt. Because he was workman's comp exempt, I couldn't say the word work at any doctor or my personal health insurance would be voided. An urgent care visit was $100, whereas workman's comp visit billed $1,500. I essentially was forced to twist the truth to get good care. Boss offered to pay medical bills and continued paying salary during recovery. So nice, right? Note, I had worked for nearly 2 years, and during the entire time, my boss had been so nice, giving extra holiday and birthday bonuses, defending me if someone was rude, so just being overall an ethical and honorable stand-up guy. At the 6-week mark to the day, I receive a termination email and letter of recommendation. My now ex-boss says he cares about my physical health, and he worries if I continue working for him, I would get injured, thereby covering himself for personal injury and negligence claim. I reply that I'm temporarily totally disabled. My state also offers no help with this for residents, and asked him that, since he failed to disclose he was workman's comp exempt, if he would do the right thing and replace workman's comp, wages only, for 6 months, because it would take me that much or longer to heal. X-rays showed no bone breaks, but MRIs showed tendon and ligament tears, which are actually tougher to heal than bone breaks. I need physical therapy and would maybe require surgery. Radio silence. Crickets. Note, during all my time working, I never missed a day of work and have never been written up once. Now I moved back in to live with my parents because my home is 2 stories and I couldn't walk upstairs. I call workman's comp and personal injury lawyers, 30 plus, who confirm I have 0 grounds for winning a case despite my legitimate injuries. I begin scouring all my work-related documents and texts and discover my boss has logged my payroll as 40 hours per week flat when I averaged 50 to 60-hour work weeks. Healthcare field. Note, My boss paid above market rate, so I always felt I'd been paid well. And he had made up for it via bonuses, which is actually legal to use as an overtime alternative, but I didn't know this until I saw the payroll itemizations. I spend about 20 hours researching what I'm owed specifically, and it's about $10,000 more than the 6 months of cash I originally asked for, since all overtime gives you liquidated damages plus lawyer's fees. I find an employment lawyer for a flat fee of $1,500. All others wanted contingency percentage of my payout, and send a letter saying if he doesn't pay in 15 days, we're taking him to federal court for FLSA violation. The letter my lawyer sent had federal all over them. Now, I wish my boss had stayed radio silent and I could have taken him to court. I had all the documents to win. Unfortunately, my boss replied 2 days later with a check for the lower amount in my email. The good news? My lawyer doesn't check his mail until 15 days later, and when I go to cash the check, there's a stop payment. My lawyer sends a letter saying we're going to also sue for fraud in the inducement. This begins a chain of back and forth letters between my ex-boss and lawyer, with my boss basically pleading us not to sue and paying the original amount. I had to sign a release saying I wouldn't sue for anything else, but my lawyer says the release was written by an amateur, aka my boss and not a real lawyer. I don't consider the fallout the money because my boss has $7 million in the bank, so to him, the payout was nothing. Fallout came after the payout. My boss took down all his ads and websites he had for hiring. I discover his loyal worker of 5 years read all the letters and ends up quitting. She knew I was fired for being injured too, so he's in a big hiring bind. He had pretty high turnovers, and even before all the drama. And I submitted a video to Social Security of my now ex-boss wife driving a golf cart when she claims $30,000 a year income from the state's disability benefits. She was also a jerk to me, and my boss knew she was lying about being blind and didn't care. Hopefully, that will be a new surprise for them coming soon. I'll probably resend the 2-minute video of this golf cart driving blind woman to the state's disability fraud department on a weekly basis. If we had ended on good terms, I never would have reported her. I got in the mid-5 figures payout, but half will be going to rent and medical bills. I still have about 3 months left to heal, during which I can't work because of all the doctor's appointments, etc. I don't feel like a winner because I got a payout, and I'd give it all back for none of this to have happened. Call me on my days off? I guess you're paying me for a call out. Years ago, I worked in the energy industry. My location was manned by a single person working 10-hour days with 8 days on and 6 days off. In the off hours, automation kept things running. During those 8 days, I was on call, so if there was a problem at the location, I was required to drop what I was doing and either log in to fix some issues or drive the 50 miles out to the facility to fix the problem. Company policy stated that if there was a call, regardless if it warranted a response to drive out or if we could handle it remotely through our computer, we got paid for a minimum of 2 hours at time and a half. After a particularly rough shift with lots of nights spent on location, I went on a much-needed set of days off. On my first day off, my counterpart on the other shift called with questions about the problems I had had. I answered and went about resting. The next day, I decided to take a break and go off-grid for the day. When I returned, I had a number of calls from my boss. When I called him back, he reprimanded me and told me that I was an on-call employee, so I need to answer when called. Annoyed, I just said okay, but asked him to follow that up with an email, which he did. We talked more about the problems for about 10 minutes and hung up. That evening, my counterpart called me 3 more times and we talked through some ideas for fixing it. Over the next 4 days I had off, he, my boss, and others working on the issue called many times. Now, remember when my boss said I was an on-call employee and I was required to answer? I added each call to my timesheet. At the end of my 6 days off, I had made just as many hours as I would in my 8-day shift. At the end of the pay period, I was called into the office where he and the district manager demanded that I explain the excessive callouts. I provided the email sent to me by my boss as well as the company policy for calls. They said that was a pretty wide interpretation of both. I countered and said that I had been called and I answered as required by my boss's email, so per policy, I was entitled to call-out pay. They disagreed and called in the vice president and HR, who surprisingly agreed with me. I was paid out for the time, and the rule became that you were only to call off-duty employees in dire emergencies. I was never called on my days off again. Karen mother-in-law tries to force me to change my son's last name. Edit. LEO means law enforcement officer. I'm a mother of a 6-year-old son. I've been with my husband for 3 years. His family is a big, proud family of law enforcement officers, and my husband is a law enforcement officer himself. They love my son as their own, but mother-in-law repeatedly asks about the possibility of giving him the family's last name, as in changing his last name, which belongs to my late husband, then lists the reasons why I should consider it. I gave no clear answers in hopes that she'd drop it. My husband was working when me and my son visited his family last weekend. Mother-in-law asked again when I will finally give my son the family's name. I felt annoyed and said I needed time to think about it to get her off of my back, but brother-in-law chimed in, saying I should feel honored and not even take time to think about it because his family's name and reputation are well known among others. Mother-in-law said by not considering it, I'm creating distance between them and my son and preventing them from being a family under one name. I was mad. I said I wasn't going to do that anytime soon and will wait until my son is old enough to decide. I added that I don't feel it's right to make this decision on my son's behalf, no matter how much his stepfamily loves him. He already has a father that gave him a respectful last name, and so this should be enough, period. Brother-in-law and his cousin chuckled, sarcastically. Mother-in-law and sister-in-law said I was a hypocrite for expecting them to treat my son as their own and yet refused to let them give him their last name. I responded that they're the ones letting a name dictate the kind of relationship they have with my son. I don't understand why it's so important to have my son have their last name, like it's supposed to complete him or something. Mother-in-law still argued about it after I said this was between me and my husband and didn't stop, so I left during the dinner, then got a text from mother-in-law thanking me for rudely telling her that her family's last name isn't good enough for me and my son. She said it's my decision to keep my son's last name, but should no longer expect them to treat him as if they are his family after I made it abundantly clear that they are not. Mother-in-law emptied the room she had for when my son visits, and sister-in-law sent her husband to take back the gifts that she gave to my son and made up an excuse for it. I was hurt and consulted mom, who said I should show my in-laws compliance if I wanted benefits for me and my son's future since they have potentials and are well off. My son's current last name is useless at this point, according to her. My husband is conflicted. One minute he's saying his mom kind of has a point. The next he's on the phone yelling at her to stop it, but still thought being rude was not the way. Did I go too far? Was I the jerk? I told my husband I won't be visiting anymore, although he said he could tell them to apologize and drop it. But I feel like this is too big for an apology to fix, even if I seemed rude. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.